Bay Harbor Island Police Explorers, if you can please come forward.
May I do the roll call?
Oh, sure, sorry. While they come forward, you can do the
Yes.
roll call. Let's
Councilmember Yaffe?
multitask.
Here.
Councilmember Chicoche?
Here.
Councilmember Sauber?
Here.
Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Councilmember Leonard?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fuller?
Here.
Mayor Bruder?
Here.
All present.
Okay.
Can I introduce Corporal Grimes and Chief Hemingway? If you'd like to come up and do the honors.
Please.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you very much. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Manager. My chief, this is him, we're all here.
Can you go to the mic?
I
Please.
can speak loud.
Can we find out who you
What's wrong
are?
with that?
And who you are?
Hand mic.
I'll use the hand mic. I just want to take a second. The chief asked if I could. This is his baby. About 3 years ago, as you know, we started the Police Explorer program. I have 10 kids. This is the leadership that's coming here, the next generation, and I can tell you, there's a lot of good we're looking forward to. There's a lot, and they truly enjoyed what just happened here. The Commissioner Fuller came over and explained what was going on, and I can't tell the questions they have. They want to know what's going on here. Very nice. They learned more in this 30 minutes they did in the whole semester in class. It was very nice, very nice. But we had a competition this year. 3 years ago, the chief started this. We did a lot of work, got organized. Last year, went to competition, and we got our butts kicked in everything that we competed in. This year we went, and we let South Florida know Bay Harbor's back on the map. And so we went there, and we had eight competitions. We took 3 of them. We took gold 1, and that was my major took gold, and she scored the highest than anybody in the entire 24 troops that were there.
Wow.
Believe it or not, we had a round tournament, basketball tournament out of 24 troops. We came in second, all the way to the finals, came in second with that group right there, as you can see. The most proud I am of all of them. Out of all the scenarios in the school, we had an active shooter situation, and this troop here came out 3 out of 24 troops, come out number 3 in an active shooter, which shows that they're going to be very good at what they got to do in the future, and I'm proud of them for that.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Forward, march, left, right, left, right. Detail, halt, left, face.
Thank you, Major. And I just want to recognize Coach Harris from the school also. He's been a true asset and ally to this program. He's been our unofficial school resource officer for years. His recruitment efforts and just the value he brings from the school. But mainly I want to thank the council. I mean, without all of you, this wouldn't be possible. The funding's been there, the support's been there. In fact, a couple of you actually asked in the budget hearing if this would be in there and to what extent. You know, I tell the kids, these are the ambassadors for kids their age. These are the kids that let other kids know it's okay to be good and you're still cool. So I'd like to really thank the Explorer Post. Congratulations. Thank Corporal Grimes, Lieutenant Locke, Anna Perez. Collectively, they've done a great job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maybe you'd like to say something to address the commission, so go ahead.
This is for?
This is
Yes.
Okay. By the way, good evening. First of all, my name is Giselle Stopignan. I'm an alumni from Ruth K. Broad Bay Harbor, and I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you guys because you guys make this town a family. I came in from a different town. I don't live in Bay Harbor, and coming in, I came in to open arms, and they welcomed me. So I can't thank you guys enough. Our police department is amazing chief, awesome. And of course, all of our citizens here from Bay Harbor, you guys are amazing. You guys support us, you guys help the children, and you guys are always there for us. If I fell down, I looked up and there was somebody there to help me. On behalf of my explorers, again, we thank each and every one of you guys. My explorers, they know I love them. Even though I push them sometimes, but it's okay. But I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Detail, attention, right face, forward, march, left,
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go back. Number 2, report request by Councilmember Reed from the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce encloses a copy of the membership dues for 2018. Ms. Reed, you would...
I'd like to introduce Jerry Libben from the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Congratulations, Mayor.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor. Thank you. Council members, City Attorney, Mr. Manager. I was asked to come and give us a report on the activities that we do in concert with the town. Many of you know that it's been a relationship now for probably 5 years or so since the Chamber of Commerce was successful in building a coalition back then to fund a nurse at Ruth K. Broad, as well as at Treasure Island Elementary School and North Beach Elementary. When I was on the Beach Commission, I learned that 3 schools out of the 8 in our feeder pattern did not have a school nurse, and that kind of shocked me, to be honest. When I was in school, and I'm sure when most of you were in school, there was a nurse, there was a phys ed teacher, and there was a principal. Today, most of the schools don't have phys ed teachers. Less than half the schools in Dade County are fortunate enough to have a nurse. So what we did is we put together a coalition, and your town funds a very, very small portion. You contribute, this coming year, you'll be asked to contribute $3,660 for a value that exceeds $150,000, and that's just for the school nurse. Last year, in the 2017 school year, there were 2,500 services provided to the students at Ruth K. Broad by the medical team at the school. This year, we added a mental health counselor. That's done through hard work of the Chamber of Commerce staff and collaboration with the Borinquen Medical Center, with the Children's Trust, with other municipalities. But it's really the work of the Chamber staff that writes the grants, that administers the grants, that turns in the reports in order to provide these services. And I just want you to know that the Education Foundation, to which you contribute your $3,600, does not have a single paid staff. It's that Education Foundation that actually applies for the grants and manages and whatnot, and there is no paid staff. So it really is on the Chamber to make these things happen. Some of the other things that your constituents might be interested to know that we do, of course, we do an annual Halloween parade and picnic, or parade and Halloween carnival. We also provide every teacher in all 8 public schools the opportunity to apply for a grant of up to $1,000 each year with our LINKS program. In the past couple of years, Lauren Perez actually won twice. I don't know if you know Lauren, one of your great teachers, 6th to 8th grade. Dr. Mercy McDowell and Olga Turget, I may have mispronounced that one.
Right, they are ESC teachers within the school.
Each one grants that we fund. Those dollars, when we fund these things, they come from the Chamber members. It comes from activities that the Chamber participates in. So we ask the town to make a contribution to the Chamber of Commerce, because the $3,600, 100% of it is going to Borinquen to help pay for the $150,000 nurse that you get. So that's not a bad return, $3,600 bucks for $150,000. In addition, we have a week from this Friday, the annual Teacher of the Year luncheon, which we solicit one of our board members, Florida Power and Light, to pay for. And we're honoring one of your teachers once again. We'd love to have you there. It's going to be at the Shelbourne a week from this Friday. And we also contributed 20 computers to Bay Harbor. It was a total of 140 computers that the Chamber donated to 7 of the 8 schools. Each one that asked for computers, we donated 20 computers to them. So in total, I estimate that you've received in excess of $175,000 worth of value. For that, we're asking you to continue your $7,500 contribution to the Chamber. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have some.
Sure.
At one time, I was a member of the School Nurse Initiative Committee, and I thought we were giving a different amount than the $3,600, didn't?
Yeah, what happened was 2 years ago, or a year ago, excuse me, the program started late. And so as a result of that, we reduced your fee. We actually charged you 50% last year. And so, because 2 years ago we started late, and so there was money carried over. So this past year, 17, you paid half as much. This year it's going back to the full amount because the program started on time. Does that make sense? 2 years ago, let me say it again, I think I can.
No, but I seem to remember a figure in the early days, Ron. Do you recall? Wasn't it 30,000?
No, it was always...
Or we were sharing it?
Yeah, the 3,600 is approximately what we were budgeting for. We always had to, at the beginning, we had to pay ahead because the program started in the middle of the year, so we
You're
paid
talking about the
ahead.
nursing program.
Yes.
And then
the School Nurse
moved on.
Initiative.
The school nurse, the only amount that Bay Harbor has paid was either 3,600 or I think last year paid 1,800.
1,800, yeah.
Because
Okay.
the year before, we started late, and so you only paid half, but you already paid the money. So we just kept it in account, charged you 50% last year. This year, again, it goes back to the 3,600. But again, none of that goes to the chamber. It's paid to the Education Foundation, 100% goes to Borinquen.
Well, I have to say that, you guys reached out to me many years ago, and Julio was still with you, and I went down to the chamber and I had a meeting with you. And what I envisioned was some support for the businesses, because we all know, for various reasons, we have a big challenge in our business district. So, we struggle. And we've tried so many different things, and many of my colleagues here have attempted different initiatives to try to spur business, and we've made zoning changes, and some things, we can't control, others we can. So some of the things that are listed here in the invoice, economic and membership development programs, and business roundtables. Have you done any business roundtables?
Yes, I mean, at the chamber, you guys would get emails, from the chamber. I'm sure you get many emails from the chamber.
But here you did them in
No.
Bay Harbor, because that's what it says on the invoice.
No, I do it at the chamber, okay? But I'm happy to come out. If you request any particular service, we're happy to come out and try and execute for you. If you would like us, 2 years ago, we did do a business charrette here in the town, and we gave you the feedback on the charrette. And if you would like, we just did one for North Bay Village. We're happy to come out and work. If you have a business advisory council, we're working with the business advisory council in North Bay Village, and we're happy to work with anyone that you may appoint, and we're available.
Well, I'll just say this. After reading your email, I don't see $175,000 worth of value. I'm not saying, that's tough because it's sort of an estimate there, but maybe including the school, but I think we really need help on the business district, and that's sort of what I envisioned when I originally supported it. And I don't think the Halloween event, the manager has told me, what he estimates the value is, and that, you get all kinds of vendors. I just don't see the kids trick-or-treating being a really good assist to the struggling businesses. And then the publication, is great. We see it everywhere. But I seem to see it more in the actual businesses. So if we're trying to drive people to the businesses, then this should be somewhere else. I'm not sure what the circulation is. I'll just say I'm kind of disappointed from that aspect, that it says even right in here that the business roundtables with the town assistants will be conducted at town hall chambers. So I'm curious how my colleagues feel, and I told you I'd listen and be open-minded, and, possibly we go forward with some changes and some real focus on the businesses.
Thank you. I would just point out that in the handout that I gave you, there's a letter from Borinquen
I saw
that
it.
this is just the nurse,
Jerry,
not even the mental health counselors.
I'm sorry for cutting you off.
$149,000.
Let's not talk about Borinquen for now. It's like a children's trust program. We've been participating. There's no issue with Borinquen. Okay, let's not talk about that anymore.
Okay.
How do you guys calculate the annual fee, our annual dues?
It's just a contribution we're asking. It's not a calculation. It's just something that we asked. We spend approximately $2,500. If you wanted to reduce it, and we wouldn't do the carnival, that's okay. We would ask you to do $5,000 and get rid of the Halloween if that's not something that you desire.
It's unfortunate, but, Fran Newhut didn't sign up for this item, and I'm really, really interested to know, since she's a pretty big stakeholder in the business district, what she thinks about this particular item, which affects the business district, in my opinion, whether it's been, Fran, can I ask you a question, if that's okay?
For you.
Well, since I don't know anything about this gentleman...
So you don't know anything, so you don't know that we're a member of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce and that it's supposed to help the business district?
I never, this is the first time I'm doing
Okay.
it. That answers your question.
Okay.
Anybody else have?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real question isn't so much whether or not we're getting 150, 175, or whatever thousand in value. Are we getting $7,500 in value? That's really the number that we have to focus on. From what I see and what I've seen in the past, I think the answer is yes. Whether or not, we're going to hit that 150, I would love to in value, and I think there are things that we can try and do to refine it, but I don't think there's a question we're getting our money's worth from this program.
Anybody else? George?
I say I've known Jerry a long time. Can anyone do better? Always. But I would think that if I had an issue, or if any council member had an issue, I think it would be more appropriate to call Jerry up, at his office and have a meeting and discuss it, rather than the first time he gets wind of issues in the public format. Because I spoke to Jerry probably 5 minutes before the meeting started, and I never had any idea that there was going to be an issue about paying this. On the contrary, I was under the impression that this was something that was going to be approved, and there was an initiative to kind of go more into it to explain the benefits that was going on, rather than issues. So I'm surprised. I'm sure did you have any idea that there was going to be issues about this, Jerry?
I was just asked to come and give a report.
Right. So I would say that if any council member or any member of the business community has an issue, we should speak to the Chamber of Commerce and give them an opportunity to right any potential wrong before we kind of just put someone in the hot seat like that, because, to be honest, that's not what Bay Harbor should be, where we just kind of out you like that. I don't feel comfortable, to be honest.
It's called transparency in government, and, like I said, I would be open, but I actually brought this item here, and then it kind of got hijacked from me in a way, so I let it go, and I observed, and then I would be willing to support it, but you got to do at least the minimum of what's in the invoice. The round tables, I think one time we were talking about it, and the manager produced a survey, and they were 8 businesses. And, I've asked a lot of businesses. We had one, a jewelry store, open within the year and closed, and, I kept asking her, to contact you and go to the events, and, it's great that you're doing the things for the school, and like Isaac said, the Children's Trust is doing things, Borinquen, that's all in place, very important, but we've got to generate some business development. I think our businesses really need that skill. There used to be an organization, and there's a void since that's been gone,
Bob?
Hi, Terry, how are you doing? I think that I would be interested in the chamber communicating with the businesses in town to see if they are interested in some type of business owners association. As Kelly had mentioned, and Linda Zilber was raising her hand back there, former Mayor Zilber, when I first came on the council, we had what we called the Business Development Association. Even though it's a development, it was really just a business association, and a number of us were pretty active in that for a while, and it met on a regular basis. It actually came out with a website, did some fundraisers and so forth, and then for whatever reason, it dwindled. And over the years, a number of the members of our community, particularly in the business community, have talked about reconstituting some type of business association. And I've always, said the burden is really on them. I mean, the council of the town, not the council of the town, has supported those, those business associations from time to time financially, and actually to a great extent in the past, but really the members of the business community themselves have to be proactive and lead that effort. So I would like in the coming year for you to contact members of the business community and see if there is an interest on their part in reconstituting some type of business association or doing anything on an organized basis. Some of the other communities, they jointly advertise and do things on certain holidays, and I'm not saying how effective that is or not, but, I think that's a good thing for the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, Councilman, thank you. And if I could work with the, probably the council's clerk to get the BTR list, and give us emails or phone numbers, we're happy to reach out to them and organize those kinds of meetings. Like I said, we just did a charrette in North Bay Village. We got all the BTRs. We reached out. Still had a fairly small turnout. It does take some effort from the other side, but
Right.
But
Well,
we're
I have
happy to
you-
organize those
right.
meetings.
I mean, former Mayor Zilber was very active. Sitting behind you, Scott Hannon, was a former president, I think, of that development association.
just as...
Right. So, I think there is an interest in the community,
Sure.
so...
Be happy
if you
to work with the clerk
uh,
if we can get the
Marlene's
BTR
office,
list.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Scott, are
Thank
you
you.
willing to start that?
If I get participation, that's why I just got tired. I was the only one doing anything, and you could constantly give me the
Scott,
time.
You gotta come up, you
Scott,
gotta
please
come up.
come up.
We can't, yeah, we have to have it on the record.
I'm going to make a shitter in a second.
Several of you mentioned
The audio picks up the right...
that all the different things that have been done by council members and other people for the community district, for the commercial district, but nobody said anything about the Development Association until now. As you know, although it hasn't been active in a long time, it used to be extremely active, and it's done a lot of really good things for this town, especially in the commercial district. It has fallen by the wayside because of a combination of a lack of participation from the commercial district and attacks from previous council people, with the full intent on trying to dismantle the organization. So it's still alive, it's just
Would you be willing to
help.
sit down with,
Absolutely.
and maybe restart since you have your organization in place, and then maybe you guys can come back next month and we can table this for a month, see what do you think, Kelly?
I'm open, like I said, I was curious to see what your perceptions were, what your experience was.
I don't think that we need, in my personal opinion, I don't think we need to table it. To me, I think I have an understanding of what it is, but I do want to bring up two quick things. One of them is, we have a lot of great ideas here, right? We've talked about like a monthly event when the weather is nice and doing those. We've talked about a car show before. Obviously we're talking about this as well. The roundtables, I think, are a great idea as well. And I think that the onus is also on us to make sure that, we're pushing the envelope forward on all of these items. So the request that I have is not just for the two of you to meet, but let's maybe ask the town staff to as well, meet. Let's come up with an actionable plan. Hey, over the next 12 months, these are the things that we want to do, and this is what we think that they'll produce for us, and bring them back to council next month. But I don't have a problem approving this today. I think we just need to continue to follow through on those action items.
I tend to agree.
Wait, one second. Okay.
Are we members of the Aventura Chamber of Commerce as well?
That's where I was working on.
We used to be. I'd like to talk about the Merchants Association, of which I was in charge.
One moment, Mayor.
Wait.
No, you don't, no,
Hold on.
Wait.
wait, we're still
Yeah, we're still talking.
We're still amongst ourselves.
1 second, Linda.
Well, with Scott.
So what's the answer? We used to be and we're not anymore?
I don't believe we are. I don't believe we were.
I don't think we ever were.
Let me say, I tend to agree with Elizabeth. I don't see a reason to table this. I mean, we're not talking about a ton where we know that we're getting our money's worth and value here. I do think there's work that needs to be done so we can try and perfect this a little bit more for the future. At the same time, I think it's time to take advantage of the fact that, look, the negative that we have is that we're a small business district. The positive that we have is that we have a small business district. It's not hard to get in touch with everybody and try and see if we can get everybody to work together to try and enhance the entire business community. So I think there's an opportunity here, but I don't see a purpose for tabling it.
Jerry, when I was with the beach, and I used to work a lot with the Lincoln Road Mercantile Association, Washington Avenue, Ocean Drive, they had, greater volume of businesses and a lot in common, a lot of retail, a lot of restaurants. Here, there's a couple restaurants and a couple retail and this and that. It's tough, but I think the key is getting them together and getting them willing to meet and to find, some kind of ideas that they can agree on to present to us.
Can I say one other thing?
Sure, and then
I just wanted to, for the benefit of members of the community who are not familiar with, the support that the town gave to the business community years ago, the town donated, I guess, I'm not sure if that's a correct term, but basically the town paid $4,000 a month, $2,000 for an economic development specialist and $2,000 for a public relations specialist to try to find tenants, bring them into the business community, and also do PR. And the town also paid $5,000 for a website that functioned for a very brief period of time, but was operated by the Development Association. So, we have, over the years, supported the development or the business community a great deal. I think when, years and years ago, when the Development Association was first started, I think the town donated $10,000 as a seed money to get that organization started.
Okay. Linda?
When we had this organization, every merchant was a member, and the people that owned the offices and the merchant stores were all members. They were very, very active. In fact, as soon as something became vacant, we went out and tried to secure somebody to come in. We traveled all over South Florida, bringing in business. That is when we brought in the art, all of the art studios. And we created for the town, once a month, we had an art walk. All of the stores stayed open. Everybody got some goodies that lived in the town and walked around. So there's a lot that can be done to create a lot of fun for all of the residents that live here so they can get to know all of their merchants.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Kathleen Kennedy.
Congratulations, staff, and good congratulations to you, Vice Mayor. Regarding the Chamber of Commerce, somebody in the industry many moons ago, Isaac, you just opened up a window and pointed out to one of the biggest business owners in this community, and she didn't want to talk. This is the issue in this town. We had the farmers market. I'm wearing one of their outfits tonight, one of many, that Indian store that was right there in the corner. You know, we all have to start behaving and caring about each other and supporting each other. As far as Chamber of Commerce is concerned, I suggest that maybe some of the, by the way, with the 2 hotels that we have, you can't get a reservation in these restaurants right now. Emilio's is packed, Payon is packed, Easter Bay, I don't know, but Ron, them flowers that you put up on the King Concourse, kudos to you and to this council. Our town never looked so good. So let's try and be positive. I suggest that that somebody, maybe in the news wave, maybe some of these businesses should go to the Aventura Marketing Council. Great place to go and to talk about your store and bringing people there. It really, really helps. And let's start being positive about this town. Let's stop the negativity. Let's just everybody get along, and enough is enough. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are we done with public comments?
No, we haven't. Just for some number 2, we haven't done public comment.
Well, that is.
Right, no, this is number 2.
Right, but that's it.
Yeah, we haven't done public comment.
Okay. So do I hear a motion and a second to accept?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Mayor, just so you know, I know the car show was mentioned. I've met with a production company, and we're working towards doing that in October.
Can I just, I'm sorry, before you go on, I apologize, Mayor. Jerry, before you take off, you might want to, if we're going to be members of the Chamber of Commerce, you might want to consider making, changing the name to like Chamber of Commerce of Miami Beach and the Beaches or something like that, or Miami Beach and,
It's going to be a charter.
like include, or DBA. So we're like kind of feel part of it.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. I can't promise that because
Can we be the Bay Harbor chapter of the...
Right, exactly, because
what you
Miami Beach Chamber of
what you
Commerce,
can do
it's
is
hard
on
to
your
really feel a
on your
connection.
town website, you should put member of Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce, and we will commit to bringing activities here to businesses when I work with these gentlemen that want to host them. We need a partnership. We can't do it without the businesses.
Right, so reach out.
So, one of the things, just so you know, Councilman,
out.
that we offered to North Bay Village is a month. We have North Bay Village month. We're happy to have, Bay Harbor Island month. And what that means is that almost every activity that we have, we would schedule in a business here. But if you only got 2 businesses that are willing to do it, it won't work.
Well, we have 2 brand-new hotels. I'm
perfect.
sure you're going to get cooperation.
Great. So we look forward to it, and thank you for the feedback, and thank you for the approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, number 3.
Item 3, we have a formal presentation for our town comprehensive annual financial report by Michael Futterman, our town auditor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Congratulations on your appointments. For the record, my name is Michael Futterman, and I serve as the audit partner on the audit of the town of Bay Harbor Islands, and I'm here to present our reports for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2017. I believe you all have, or should have, a copy of the comprehensive annual financial report, and if you want to follow along, I'm just going to go through a few items. Again, mainly our reports, which is the only part of the document that belongs to us as the auditors. On Roman numeral page 6, which is in the introductory section, the town receives a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting, and this is issued, provided by the Government and Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, and this is from the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for September 30, 2016, and the town is going to be submitting this document to the GFOA for their certificate for 2017. On page 1, 2, and 3 is except a few pages in the document that belong to us as the auditors, and it's our independent auditors report. And the first paragraph talks about what we've audited, which financial statements. The second one talks about management's responsibility for the financial statements. And as I mentioned, this document belongs to the town and not to us as auditors. The third paragraph talks about our responsibility to express opinions on the financial statements. Our audits performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and because this is a governmental entity in the state of Florida, we're also required to follow government auditing standards, which is the second set of auditing standards. The most important, on page 2, the most important paragraph for your purposes is the opinion paragraph, or opinions paragraph. And it states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the town as of September 30, 2017, and the respective changes in financial position and, where applicable, cash flows thereof for the fiscal year then ended, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This is known as a unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, which is really the only opinion you'd like to be associated with. On page 4, pages 4 through 15 is management discussion and analysis. I know it's a lengthy document. If you read anything within the document, this management discussion and analysis is something similar that what a public company has to provide in their annual report. This is on page 4 through 15, and what it does is compares fiscal year 17 with fiscal year 16, talks about what's changed, but gives you explanations of why it changed, not just the fact that balance has changed from one year to the next. As I mentioned earlier, the audits performed in accordance with government auditing standards. As a result, we are required to report certain findings in writing, which are known as material weaknesses in internal control over financial reporting, or significant deficiencies in internal control over financial reporting, or material non-compliance. And I'm pleased to provide you with information. For this year, we had no matters to report. As you recall, last year there were 2 findings that we had. One of our responsibilities is to look at those findings in the current year so we can be comfortable so the finding doesn't have to be repeated. Again, pleased to report that they were corrected. We tested items to ensure that the matter of the finding were addressed. In addition, after that audit report, which is on page 87, 88, and 89, there's also a management letter in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General of the State of Florida, and that report just goes on to talk about our responsibility. It summarizes a little bit of the audit process, and there's one section in that letter that we report to the Auditor General. It's called Prior Audit Findings, which is on page 91, and we just say the corrective actions have been taken to address findings and recommendations made in the preceding audit report. Some of the other items that we address in that letter to the Auditor General has to do with financial condition. There are 2 areas. If there's deteriorating financial conditions that we see based on a financial condition assessment we perform, we're required to provide that in writing to the Auditor General. In addition, there were no matters to report to the Auditor General. In addition, if we see deteriorating financial emergencies, In accordance with Florida statutes, we're also required. And a financial emergency would be if you missed your payroll, if you missed your debt service payments. Those are things that would rise to the level of financial emergency, and those have to be reported to the Auditor General also. The last report in the document on page 93 is the Auditor General requires us to look at the town's investment policy and make sure the investment policy conforms to the Florida statutes. And they now require a written report from us just saying that we've examined the investment policy, we've examined the town's investments to make sure they comply with that. And again, that's the report on page 93, and we found, no violations against the statute related to their investment policy. In addition to this comprehensive annual financial report, there was a separate letter that was also provided to you. It's a communication, we call it a communication with those charged with governance. And that letter you received during our planning phase of the audit in December. This is the second part of it, which just summarizes the audit, talks about that there were no new accounting policies adopted in fiscal year 17. The application of the accounting policies was not changed from year to year, because obviously one of the premises for financial statements is they have to be consistently applied, so entities can't keep changing policies to come out to desired outcomes. So that's what's on the first page. We encountered no difficulties in dealing with management. We are pleased to report we had no disagreements with management. And I'd like to thank Ron and JC and all members and your new finance director, Melissa Cruz, who did an outstanding job because she wasn't here during the fiscal year that was audited, and she did a great job, taking over and stepping in and really understanding in a short period of time what was going on to help the audit get completed in a timely manner. So with that, I'd like to open to any questions, if anyone has any.
Question.
Go ahead, Mr. Vice Mayor. No, I have a couple of questions.
Go for it.
When did you guys finish field work on this audit?
Well, in March, I guess our report's dated March 30th.
Yeah, and when is it officially due? Like, when is our deadline? Like
March? 9 months after the fiscal year.
So March 31st, basically.
June 30th.
Is it June 30th?
Yes. June 30th is requirements under Florida statutes. March 30th is a date for the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement program.
Because I only ask because I know that, again, my son is on the, he's the vice mayor of Bal Harbor, and they got their comprehensive annual financial report 2 months ago.
I'm not sure that...
Yeah, well, that's what he said.
We do the audit of the Bal Harbor pension plan, so I'm not sure that was just
Well, he said it was, well, I think, the report, I'm glad to hear that there were no findings. It's a clean audit report. That's great. But I think we need to get this earlier.
Well, that will be up to your finance department if they can prepare the information. We have some audits that we start actually in November, December. Some of them are presented in January and February. Some of the larger cities can't get it done that quickly.
Well, you know as well as I that the information is much more useful if it's current and fresh.
Right.
Let me ask you a question, because I know that I had the same question last year. Was there any, communications that you personally had with members of this council that, guided your field work at all this year?
Not related to the field work, no.
But there was other,
Well, there was one question came up on the utility billing process and collections, but that was after the financial statements were issued.
So it wasn't, was it before March 30th?
It might have been just before, but the audit was done and we just issued on March 3rd. I don't remember the exact date. It might have been 2 weeks before that,
There was nothing that you discovered was worthy of any comment or anything like that, right?
No, we addressed that during the course of our audit, as your finance director can attest to, but that was in January or February we addressed that, long before any comment was ever brought to, a question was brought to our attention.
Okay.
And it was just a question that was brought to our attention.
Thanks, Mike.
I was going to say, I'm actually glad you went first, because when I read this the other day, I found something, I had a question, I couldn't find the page, but now at least I found it again. Okay. Maybe, and again, I'm not an accountant here, but one of the things that I noticed the TDR transfer that actually, I'm sorry, page 64.
All right, thanks.
The TDR transfers came in at 1.2 million, or give or take, 1.25 million. Absent that transfer in, which is obviously an unknown coming in each year, we would have been about $300,000 negative variance as far as with the budget. My question comes along those lines as far as how you would justify that, and obviously we can't count on a TDR transfer every year or specifically, that kind of dollar figure.
Well, I mean, when you prepare a balanced budget, obviously your revenues, if you look at that other than TDRs, your revenues came in probably about $300,000 less than you expected, for the year. And your expenditures came in actually about almost $500,000 less than you had budgeted. So when you prepare a budget, you prepare a balanced budget.
Right, but as far as recommendations in order to try and alleviate that problem in the future, because obviously with TDRs you can never count on, let alone you can't...
Well, you didn't. If you look on column page 64 in your original final budget column, you didn't include that in your budget. Right. You didn't
I understand
budget
that,
Okay.
but when you came back with the actual amounts and what came in, it shows the variance that were positive by $954,000 and change, but obviously absent the TDRs, which came in at 1.25, we would have been below what we, as far as revenue, below what we budgeted. So rather than have that issue later on and have a potential repeat of it, is there any recommendation you would give as far as future budgeting issues?
Well, obviously you prepared a budget that was balanced. If you go forward and you realize during the course of the year that the TDRs weren't coming in and your revenues weren't meeting your expectations of your budget.
We've adjusted, but we didn't budget any
Josh,
TDRs.
I can tell you, I don't think we never budget.
We never.
Ever
No,
with the idea of
that's my point. because
TDRs.
We didn't budget.
that money.
Right, so we didn't budget any TDRs, nor should we, because you can't guess on that. But what I'm saying is, we only balanced it along these lines on these numbers because of the TDR. If the TDR
No, you
had
didn't.
not...
You didn't. No, you didn't. You balanced your budget without the TDRs.
It would have been $300,000 variance, but I'm saying the variance would have been $300,000
He's saying the TDRs exceeds the variance.
Right.
If you look at the original and final budget column, you prepared a budget, a balanced budget. You approved it, obviously, before the end of September, and it doesn't include TDRs. So you had a balanced budget. Now, the actual, what transpired...
Right, I understand the balanced budget, but then the actual, essentially, the actual amounts, obviously, we would have brought in about $300,000 and change less than we had originally budgeted. So that's my question, is rather than have that problem repeated, because we don't have a knowledge, nobody can foretell exactly how much is going to come on a TDR, any recommendations you would have as far as budgeting in the future?
During the course of the year, you just have to monitor your budget and how you're performing against that budget, and if you realize your revenues aren't going to be where they expect to be, then you have to adjust your expenditures and spend a little bit less. That's really the only way to monitor it, because your budget's prepared so far in advance. You did a good job budgeting, the balanced budget is required by the statute.
Michael, if I could just...
I actually think that to answer your question, so one of the things that when I looked in, I saw that too, but I looked at what the changes were. So we're down 15.5% in TDRs, but we're up 9.7% in property taxes.
Right.
So I think the answer on the flip side of that is the 9.7% increase in the property taxes, that we have to allocate the budgets accordingly.
But that actually helped us balance it. In other words, if it wasn't for that, we would have had a problem, because they went up so much. So if they had not, my point being is, if it hadn't increased that much in property taxes, and we hadn't gotten lucky with the TDRs, we would have had a problem.
I completely agreed, but I think we're going to continue to see the increase in the property taxes to offset the TDRs, because you have the reduction in the purchase of the TDRs and the increase in the
But
property
you
taxes.
got to be careful with the budget. You can't, that number exceeded what's going to happen.
The most important part is actually just monitoring on an ongoing basis during the course of the year. That's the only way you can do it.
But we get
Your revenue projections come in, I guess, so early that most of them are provided by the state of Florida. They come in at an early date, long before the end of the fiscal year even starts. So all you can do is monitor the activity, on a monthly basis and see how you're performing. I mean, if it came in $1 million less, you would have to adjust. Either you'd have to take part of prior year fund balance to use, or you'd have to just reduce expenditures, find things to cut back on. That's really going to...
I was going to say that, a third of the difference is actually in two categories, and not even going to the beginning, which is more itemized, just looking at the license and permitting fees, the difference is we budget $871,000, but it came out at $629,000 and change. And then the other one was the investment earnings, where obviously fell significantly short. So right off the bat there, you're talking about almost $300,000. I mean, we do get reports quarterly, so we get quarterly reports from the finance department that goes over to the budget, and it's always funny when I first got on the council, they put those little asterisks. I always ask the question about what's going on with those, the second asterisk, the 2, 3 asterisks. That's where the where the real meat is. If, and that's obviously what happens. Whenever you go into budgeting, and I've done this a lot of times, you're always going to find that difference, and you can see clearly here, the license and permit fees and the investments. Those are two tickers we need to be mindful of. So.
I just want to make the point that the TDR funds are not used to make up any budget shortfalls if there are, because the TDR funds are reserved for specific purposes in our ordinance. So, if there is a shortfall, it has to be made up either through reserves or, as you say, cutting other expenses. So just for the public knowledge, we don't use TDR funds for any shortfalls.
Right.
Okay, we have a John Vetter. I'm sorry. Mr. Vetter, if you could please come forward.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
My questions are for you, because I'm not smart enough to understand those, and I saw it just minutes before the meeting. John Vetter, 10350 West Bay Harbor Drive. I saw there's some income for water and utility, correct? Included in your report?
In the financial statements, the operating income you're referring to?
Well, I just remember seeing some water, and I was wondering if those included interest payments on overdue water bills.
Interest payments that the town would have?
Microphone, you guys, both of you.
Would have collected.
We don't. That I'm not
I think
sure
that's a
offhand.
pass-through.
I said there's charges for services for the water and sewer services, but I'm not sure if there's interest in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions?
Nope.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Request for withdrawals, deferments, and future agenda items.
I have future agenda items. I think we need to have an item and explore Section 20 on billing and collectibles. We also need to look again at some charter changes, term limits, voting for mayor, etc. And I'd like to explore the Parks Committee's recommendation once again of a small nominal recognition for former council member Doris Morano.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up for the next council meeting a discussion item in regards to the parking on Bay Harbor Terrace between 100th and 101st. I'd like to get a staff report about that. Also, I'd like to get, I mentioned to the manager about the possibility of perhaps creating another structure for the kids. They've asked for something in addition, and I'd like to just see if what the numbers come back. So that may or may not happen, but just so you know, they're working on it. And also, a few residents, actually one specific resident asked in regards to the on the water, Bow Harbor and Surfside in regards to lifeguards. And since we have a new mayor, that could be something that perhaps she can bring to the attention of the mayors in Surfside and Bow Harbor about that some of the residents are concerned about the lack of lifeguards on the beach area.
Okay.
That's it.
Let me add one thing, because this might be a future agenda item. Frank, I just wanted to understand what the status is when we can expect the Attorney General's opinion letter.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know.
The most honest answer we can get.
As I said, it could take a few weeks, a few months, or...
Okay, because when we discussed it last time, as far as being on the agenda, we talked about it either not waiting, because it's a security issue and safety issue for the kids.
My experience in the past number of years with the Attorney General is a range of 3 months to 6 to 8.
Okay, so in that instance, then I want to put something on the agenda that we move forward. We talked about it last time with the possibility if we were going to wait for the security meeting, we were going to wait, we thought it was about 2 weeks or 3 weeks for a quick Attorney General opinion. And with that not coming potentially for 3 to 6 months, I don't want to put the kids' safety at risk. So I'd like to have it on the agenda next month.
Can we have an update for that item too? Can you guys reach out to the Attorney General and see where they think that they're at by the time that hits?
We've called twice so far.
They're busy defending themselves right now.
Right.
They're busy defending themselves.
They seem to be very busy.
Okay.
I will call again this week.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Town managers report?
I'm happy to report that Atlantic Broadband met with us voluntarily about undergrounding on King Concourse. I've been working a long time to try to get rid of those ugly poles that carry the wires that connect the East and the West Island with electric. Involved with that is also AT&T, which has completed their work, and the last one is Atlantic Broadband. They met with myself and engineer Randy Daniel, and they were very, very cooperative, I have to say, and it was a real change, a pleasure to meet with them, and expect this project to be done fairly soon, and we can get rid of those poles.
Great.
That's about it.
Okay.
I have some questions to the manager. Ron, I know you looked into the AT&T box that was placed just north of the
Yes.
hotel, and, you know, just for those who don't know, it's like a utility connection box, and they had it moved, and it does seem like it's in the way of the passage of the sidewalk.
AT&T is going to put 2 bollards on each side of it. It's more like an alert someone so they don't accidentally walk into it, and they're going to take the sidewalk and kind of curve and widen the sidewalk by about 18 inches so that anybody walking can walk around it. It's passable, but it does interfere. It would have been
They have
great.
to remove the tree?
I don't think they moved a tree, but there's so
Because
much...
there's a tree right there. I mean, it's definitely not wide enough to meet ADA
Oh,
standards.
yeah, the tree might have to go. That tree might have to be moved.
Walkable's one thing.
I thought you meant
have to make
behind
sure
it.
it's for ADA.
For sure. In that area, I can tell you there's a lot of infrastructure from FP&L, sewer, water. It was a real challenge to get everything through there and into that building, so that's why the pole of that box is where it is.
And
Were you
and if you have an update also on the mosquito control?
I'm happy to give that. I spoke with South Miami, Steve Alexander, and we actually reached out to the county. Right now, the program is still being evaluated. We asked and volunteered that if they could come down here, we'd love to be part of a trial, but they're not ready to do that yet. And but they said it's nice to know that we have somebody as a controlled environment. It would be great for us because we're an island, and it would be really effective where the other thing. But they're really still evaluating the whole program, and it's basically a science project still underway down there.
Right.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
I think it is, and the key is, you know, that we control the mosquitoes without the toxicity that people are really aware of. And then finally, you and I spoke about having an annual, like a hurricane preparedness update as part of the May meeting every year. So I look forward to that. I think it's a really good idea just to kind of keep everyone on the same page. Thank you.
Ron, I just had one thing about accessibility. Over at the base of the bridge by the Bay Harbor Grand, the catch basin over there is elevated, and there's a couple of poles over there. And in terms of, I'll take you out there, but
You know what, just say it
but I
again.
think that
Just say the...
The Grand Beach, you mean?
by the Grand Beach, right? But I'm saying that area over there, accessibility, it's a little bit difficult. I mean, if somebody, you know,
Skateboards or...
had a, well,
something over there.
besides skateboards, you had a wheelchair or a walker or something over there, I just think that the way that's situated, and particularly because of the condition of the catch basin over there, I think you
Okay.
should take a look at that.
Right on the corner.
Right on the corner.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
It's the state.
Okay, let's go to public comments.
No, I think council report.
Oh, council report, sorry, someone. Elizabeth?
I'll make this quick. I know we have a full agenda for the evening. Thank you to everyone who came out. It was really nice to see all of the faces in the seats this evening. This is something that's really encouraging. I love seeing residents come out and participate with us and give us their opinions. It's always appreciated, so thank you for that. I did attend the spring egg hunt and the pizza with the police. I would like to take a minute and thank, obviously, Parks and Recreation, and I'm interested to see in the future years working with the Chamber of Commerce and with the staff to kind of coordinate some events. I would like to take a second, I know that the Explorers were here, and just really commend them. During the event, they took some of the children off to the side and actually met with them, and there was a lot of positive peer pressure. You know, we hear a lot about negative peer pressure and children getting other children to do negative things, and this was a circumstance where you saw a lot of positive peer pressure. You know, these children were looking at these teenagers and thinking about how cool they were for doing something positive. And I saw it even when I got in the car with my kids. They were like, "Mommy, did you see that?" And I was like, "Yeah, they're cool." So I want to just thank you guys. Everyone with children is laughing. I want to thank you guys so much for your work on that. It was a wonderful event. There are more events this month, and I just want to bring them up quickly. We do have Earth Day cleanup on the 22nd. The Shred-a-thon is on the 28th. Please, if you guys have not signed up for the Bay Harbor Circular that we have, it gets emailed out every month and it gets mailed every month. There's a lot of really great information. It keeps you up on the events that are going to be happening. Please reach out to the town and sign up for it if you have not. There's just great information there. I just want to congratulate Mayor Bruder and Vice Mayor Fuller, and thank Mayor Leonard for his service for these few years. Thank you.
Since the last meeting, I have been going to all of the planning and zoning meetings because they've been discussing an item we're going to hear later, the code amendments for single-family homes, and it was very interesting, you know, to hear the rationale and also to support them, because our P&Z works very hard. They meet twice a month, and we don't always get to recognize them for that. I also went to the Day League of Cities meeting on April 5th. I would have preferred to be at a Meet the Candidates, but we didn't have one, so I went to the League of Cities and watched Jordan Leonard receive an award over there and get ready for his new adventures. I attended this past weekend the Pelican Harbor event. We sponsor Pelican Harbor. It's a wonderful organization, and they rescue seabirds and all kinds of wildlife, and they do a great job. And we gave a little bit more this year, and the reports that they have and the stats, you know, they're really doing great things there. So they wanted to say thank you very much to everyone for your donation. I missed that last PTA meeting. At the last meeting, you all were talking about the PTA meeting, and I thought, did I miss an email or something? So I checked, and I guess I just missed the invitation. I think it might have come through Mayor Leonard. But from now on, I called the principal and the PTA president, and I checked with the manager. So I want to make sure that I'm included, since I don't have a child in the school. I may not get one, but you know, I am on the council, and I should be included in any kind of meetings, especially about security. The egg hunt was awesome. It was from 11 to 1 last Sunday, and a lot of staff was there. A lot of kids enjoyed, and it's nice to see the Parks Department. They fine-tune it, bless you, every year. So bless you. Any parents, I think they've left already, but if your kids got there a little too late and they didn't get eggs, don't worry. Next time it's going to be all arranged so that everyone will get their share. Thank you.
Yeah. Just very briefly, I wasn't able to attend the Miami-Dade League of Cities meeting. What award did you get? Because
The President's Award.
Oh, the President's Award, wonderful. That's congratulations on that, and congratulations on getting the most votes in Bay Harbor Island's history in a council election. It's you know, commendable, and congratulations to Stephanie, no longer Vice Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Josh Fuller, of course. We'll have a great year, with God's help. You know, speaking of awards, I got a letter last week from the Florida League of Cities that I earned the Hometown Hero Award from the Florida League of Cities. Yeah, they've said they're going to arrange Everybody knows that I'm an accountant, and this past month I've pretty much been chained to my desk. So, thanks to the council for covering all the events for us here.
Thank you. Jordan?
Oh, thank you. I'll be brief. Yes, I attended the last League of Cities meeting where I received the President's Award from our current president, Mayor Gilbert, who's the mayor of Miami Gardens, which is the third largest city in the county. Unfortunately, Mayor Gilbert, being the mayor of a very large city, had other responsibilities. That is almost a full-time job over there, and asked me throughout the year to help him out when he could not not be there and do certain things to keep the organization going, and I did so, and as a good number 2, and I guess that's why I got the award, which I appreciate. In addition to the election, I attended the Easter egg hunt, which is always fun, and also the Pizza with the Police, and I concur with Councilmember Tricochet. It is important that we have the explorers be part of that. It's one thing to have parents participate, it's another thing to have the police participate. It's really another thing to have individuals that are a little bit older, or certainly individuals that are still minors participate, because that positive feedback, I really see exactly what she said. That's the most important. If that interaction results in one less potential crime or one less amount of bullying, then everything the chief is doing is a huge success. So I really have to say hands off to the chief and the explorers. That really made the month. So.
Good evening. I wanted to mention, seems like it's a while ago, but back in March there was the annual Morris and Anita Broad Picnic and Earth Day celebration, and that was a great event. We had a huge turnout this year. The weather was great, and I think the community really appreciated that event. I want to thank the Broad and Bustle families for their support and sponsorship of that event. Without them, it would be difficult to have that event be as successful as it is every year. There was also a pet adoption event there as well, which I thought was, a great thing for our community, and just to, get pets out there and keep them safe. I did attend the Pizza with the Cops. That was for the first time that I attended that event. That's great. We had a huge turnout there as well. I was really impressed with the explorers and the information provided by our police officers, and particularly the chief. And let's see what else. I've too have been going to planning and zoning meetings because we on the council had charged the P&Z board with looking at the single-family home regulations. I know that they're going to be, we have an item on this evening's agenda, and I really appreciate the effort and the hard work of the members of the board, and they've had a lot of ideas, very creative and very great discussions. What else? Congratulations to the mayor and the vice mayor. Thank you to our prior mayor. I also want to commend Victor Maya for running for election this year. I think it's great that members of the community participate, and that's it. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to start off by first of all thanking my colleagues for the votes for vice mayor, and congratulations to Stephanie as our new mayor. And thank you to Jordan for your years of service as mayor. Also, Bob, thank you for mentioning the picnic. It seems to have fallen in between the meeting, and so I think all of us, we were all there, and we very much appreciate the Broad family's donation every year and sponsoring the picnic. It's a wonderful event that I'm glad that the community shares. Trying to be quick, also the egg hunt again was a wonderful event. We had a bunch of kids. The weather turned out nicer than we thought. We got a little worried up till a few minutes, and then it turned out beautiful. So I hope everybody else who wasn't able to join us this year can join us next year for it. I also attended the Miami-Dade County League of Cities meeting. Jordan, congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
And also Miami-Dade County League of Cities sponsored an attorney's luncheon dealing with home rule. Actually, Bob and I both attended on that, trying to see what we can do to protect your rights to rule yourselves rather than have Tallahassee dictate.
Last but not least, I guess, I want to first of all thank everybody for giving me your support, and I want to thank Jordan for the last 3 years of showing me how it's done by sitting. I've been sitting next to you.
Listen, congratulations, Stephanie. Congratulations, Josh. You guys are going to do a great job. So I know
Thank
it.
you, Josh. I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful time. I'm hoping that this coming year that we can put away whatever difficulties and discretions and petty fighting that we've had, and that we can move forward. We are a town of over 5,000 people, and we bump into each other every day. almost. And I think that it's time to move forward and let the bygones be bygones. And I'm hoping that we can turn the page and start afresh. At least that's what I'm hoping that we can do in the next coming years, and then we can move forward. And that's my wish for the coming year. Thank you. Okay, let's move to public comments. Victor Maya.
Victor Maya, 1155 103rd Street. The day after the election, I come down the stairs in my building from the third floor to the second floor to the first floor, only to be met by a bunch of caution ribbons across the stairway and signs basically saying that we needed to evacuate the building, that it was unsafe. This is an outrage. I have seen not one, not two, but 3 different memos from our town manager trying to justify what was done to me and my building. There is no question in my mind that these actions were done in retaliation for my having the audacity to actually run for office here in this town. It was a message, it was harassment, it was intimidation, and it's not the first time that this has happened here to me at this town. The use of government force to tamp down any type of opposition that anyone might have to anything going on here in the council. And it was outrageous, completely outrageous. And I can go through line by line, every single last one of them here, all the various explanations to show how everything that was said is pretextual and nothing but a pretext. And this is an out-and-out assault on me and my colleagues and my neighbors. There were elderly women in my building that were scared when they saw those notices. No one said that those notices only applied to one part of the building, but that you can stay there. Nobody said anything. Those notices came up the day after the election. There was a final approval of a permit that was done February 1st. The building department manager, or the supervisor of our building department, was in my building on February 1st and signed off on the permit. There is no way he could have seen the condition of my stairway in front of the building and said it's perfectly fine, there's no problem, and come to the same conclusion the day after the election when nothing has changed. This is an out-and-out pretext to harass and intimidate me and to send a message to anybody else who wants to run for council here. This is what happens. This is what happens when you oppose the group. I have seen here, you guys have voted, with all due respect to Mr. Yaffe here, 6-1 on everything. On everything. This is not what this town means. This is not. You can disagree among things. I have had a situation where I was in a building. You gonna give me more time or not?
Yes, please. I'll give you another minute. 1 minute.
1 minute, please.
I was in the Kingsley Arms campaigning, okay? And our mayor comes into the building, all disheveled, in flip-flops, running in, yelling and screaming at me, "Liar, liar, liar, get out of my building! Get out of my building! I'm calling the police! I am calling the police! Get out of my building!" I'm like, I'm allowed to be in this building, okay? Electioneering is not the same as solicitation, and the doors were open. You want to call the police, and we'll deal with it. Okay, then she showed, an email or a text from one of the residents in her building. And she asked, "What's the condition of your building?" She asked me the condition of my building. I said, "My building? What does my building have anything to do with this?"
Thank you, Mr. Maya.
Am I still being given
You were given an extra minute, sir.
Thank you.
It is shocking, shocking that you would shut me down here.
Thank you.
Ron,
Thank you.
I'm actually going to say...
No, you go
one thing.
ahead, Josh, you start.
Ron, I want you to give a report, because I will say this. The optics are not good. I will admit, the optics don't look right. The fact that, there's the condemnation the day after the election. Whether it's coincidental or whether it was purposeful, I would like to get a full report on that.
Well, I can say, I wrote a report, I think you've all received it. I have to say that Mr. Meyer is incorrect. We have no desire to interfere with him and his building, and there was no posting or condemnation of the building. It was just taking his stair out of service because of the condition. I think we have pictures of it. I don't know if Marlene wants to just put them up so everybody knows what we're talking about. Dale Lee was out there doing the work of the 40-year certification of their building, which began in 2016. We have approximately 30 to 40 buildings that are going through this process presently. When Mr. Lee went back,
Can you give this to someone?
you can, I mean, it's, yeah.
TV. Oh, perfect.
Part of the process in a 40-year certification is a building engineer's report that is supplied by the building that's going for the certification has to provide. One of the things that was pointed out in the report was the severe corrosion of the railings, stairs, and columns in the building. At the same time that 40-year certification started in 2016, they also applied for and was successful in having the birdcage structure, that stairwell in front of the building, known as Dexter Building, deemed historic. That was also about 2.5 years ago. Part of the process of this research, which they were moving forward with, was to do the railings, which they did. Our deputy superintendent or deputy of the building department asked Dale, did it include the first floor of the building? That was like in April, I want to say April 9th. He scheduled himself to go back out, relook at the railings that were already installed. Bumped into one of the board members who basically said they're working on it, but it's going to be quite a while due to historic preservation and the nature of going through the approval process. It was at that time, Dale Lee, I guess that was on the 10th, conferred, looked at his notes, went back on the 11th, and then placed the stair out of service. At no time, as a matter of fact, the first time I learned about it was when the stairs were actually put out of service, and that was really it. There's no nefarious thing about this. If you see you can see by some of the pictures, it's not in good condition. It's rusting very badly. A lot of it's held together with duct tape and string. And it was really the concern and safety comes first. And I don't limit and I don't speak to the building department about what they should be doing and when they should be doing it. They follow what they should be doing. This is their job.
Was the sign placed only on the ground floor, or was it placed in the top as well?
It was placed on the downstairs only because Dale could not get into the property. He went back today and took care of the rest of it, the second and third floor landings.
What do you mean he couldn't get into the property? Because
that's you can't. There's an elevator around.
Yeah.
No. You need
he
a pass
entered the
key to
property
get in.
obviously. Well, no, hold on. He entered the property obviously to tie the condemnation sign on.
From the outside, you have to get into.
Yeah, but once you tie it, you're on the property.
Josh, he could not get in to the property. He had to roll the tape. He had to do it almost from the outside. Okay, he's not going to climb over the fence, but he taped off as best he could, and he put on a do not use the stairs.
Okay, my concern is this: if it was that serious or is that serious of a safety issue, then going back a few days later is a problem. I'd rather, and Dale, I understand if you can't get in, but the fact is, at that point, if we have any safety issue of that magnitude, of any building, home, any structure in the town, then we need to find our way to get access, whether police knocking on doors, whatever it is, so that people are appropriately notified. It does, look, I understand, you're telling me it was innocent and, so be it, but it doesn't, you have to admit, it doesn't, the timing looks strange.
Listen, Josh, you can say the timing doesn't look good, but you still have an unsafe structure. That's the bottom line.
Ron, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying, the timing doesn't look right, but also on top of that, I'm a little upset about the fact that if there is an unsafe structure, we need to do a better job of making sure that we actually cordon off the entire area that's unsafe. It is a little bit, and forgetting the timing, forgetting everything else, if the bottom of a stairway is not safe, then we have to tape off the top as well.
I agree.
Okay,
We'll do a better job. As soon as we could get into the property, which we were able to contact the building management, they let us in and they got to the top. Okay.
I have to say I agree with you, Josh. Just the three different stories, changing the story to the 40th, it just doesn't make sense to me. And
I don't understand. I did not change anything, any story. My report is my report.
Well, we got different emails, and then by the third time is the first time we heard anything about a 40-year certification.
It's in your, if you read the report, it's in there.
I only got the one thing with the 40.
The thing about the unsafe structure, that red tag, is there another kind of red tag? I mean, because truly, when I saw an image of it, just imagine anybody coming home and thinking they've got to find another place to live until that structure gets repaired or something. I mean, it's shocking to see that. And it wasn't just the stairs, it was at the entrance to the whole building. Isn't there some other way to communicate more specifically or to leave a memo with it? I don't know. I found it distasteful.
I'm sorry, did we get other emails besides this?
No, the president of their board emailed the council. I responded to that email and I copied the council on my response. My report is the same, it's the same thing.
That's right. So the report is the same, right?
Okay.
Report is the same.
All right, I'd like to say something, and it takes extreme items for me to take the stance that I'm about to take. It is an honor and a privilege to serve as an elected official. And it is not something that I take lightly or I take without consequence. I can understand if the only piece of information that was provided was that it happened the day after the election, how upsetting and what a visceral reaction people can have. But that's not the only piece of information that's available, and it's not the only piece of information that's accurate. And I take extreme distaste to someone coming up here and saying that we have nefariously and maliciously gone after individuals. If anything, I would say during this election process, there were some horrid things that were said about me personally as well that I did not appreciate. And I have remained quiet about it because I think that is part of the responsibility and part of the understanding that you have as an elected official is that you are open. You are open to take that sort of criticism, and I am open to it. But I will say this, I have a timeline in front of me that starts in August of 2016. There is a long history of items that are going on here. And do I think it was perfect on either side? Absolutely not. I think both parties can do better. But my biggest concern as it stands today, based upon these pictures that I have, particularly this one right here, is that there's an unsafe structure that we have residents that are potentially walking on still. And that is my biggest concern as it stands today. That right now we need to make sure that there is a safe structure for our residents to be able to walk on. And so I want to better understand, I heard you talk about a permit and an inspection that specifically says that the birdcage is not included in that. What is going on to resolve this for our residents so that they have a safe structure to walk up and down? Because it's not just the vision that they had when they walked out, it's the fact that every day they're walking up and down a structure that quite frankly is being eaten away, and there are entire sections that are missing. So where are we at, and perhaps if there's a representative from the building themselves, where are we at in getting this resolved? Because we need to make sure that our residents are safe first and foremost.
I can tell you that they are working, or I've been told they've been working on getting bids and proposals for replacing railings and working on the structure. They contacted the Miami-Dade Historic Preservation Board. They were given all the appropriate things to submit. So far, they haven't heard anything, and we hope that they move forward on that, as they have replaced a lot of the other railings that were very, shaky. And before they can replace it, it has to go in front of they has to be reviewed by the Board of the Historic Preservation. That is not a lengthy process. They understand that it's been red tagged, and they actually thought it was appropriate, judging by the condition, and it's their responsibility to do it, and to move forward. We have no issue with the stairs being maintained as the stairs as it looks today. It's just because it's going to take some time, and they are working on it. It's just until they say it's safe or until it's improved, it just has to be not used. And that is really it. There's no fines, there's no anything here.
Elizabeth, can I go now? I know you're on. Ron, I have a question. Sure. Are the conditions of those steps a code violation?
More from the rusting, the rust paint, because they had painted.
Separate the birdcage from the rest of the properties in Bay Harbor Islands. If a property had railings that looked like that, would they be issued a citation?
Most likely.
Okay, and I'm presuming that there are no outstanding violations for the birdcage. Is that correct?
No.
So in my opinion, harassment would have been hitting them with code violations and starting really to enforce things like that. So this was really a safety issue, right?
It was totally a safety issue. 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, speaking with, I think it was the board president, they acknowledged that there's an issue with the stairs and safety is of a concern. And that was raised by the members of the board when they contacted the Historic Preservation Board. So it's not us crying, wolf or anything like that. They're concerned as well as we are. So it's really just a matter of safety. And I don't think, timing or convenience is, safety comes first. I wish it was later, or I wish it was. If it was sooner, I think we'd be hearing the same issue.
Yeah, but along those lines, I want to see our procedure changed a little bit as far as the sign needs to be updated, and also if it is a stairwell, let's do it right and find a way to get access to front, top and bottom.
I agree.
I just have a comment and a question. And maybe this occurred, because I know that there's a property manager at that association that if, some portion of the building is red tagged and so forth, that there needs to be very quick communication with the property manager by way of explanation, so that the residents of the building have an understanding of what the limitations are and which portions of the building are not accessible to the residents, so that if there was any confusion, on the part of residents that they couldn't be in the building, that would have been, alleviated very quickly. The other thing is, this is a 40-year certification process, which you indicated started in 2016, and not talking specifically about this property, but in general, maybe Dale can answer this, how long can these processes go on, in other words, in order to get, that certification?
Sometimes years. It's years.
Well, what does the town do about that? Is there under it's a county ordinance, right, that for the recertification?
I know Dale can answer this question, but I just spoke, speaking with Ianides, review, really updating it for myself, is that she sets timing in her schedule. Like, the only reason April 5th was, she's trying to move the process along also. She noticed two things. One, she was questioning, were the railings all done, and it didn't include, her question was, did it include the first floor? Obviously it doesn't, because it's the ground floor. But there was a little confusion there. And her other thing was, she reached out to management because there was two electrical issues raised in the report submitted by the building, and it was a pool, something about the pool, and something about lighting. No permits were ever pulled. So she reached out to Mr. Lasker, the building management fellow, and said, hey, listen, did you have where are you with this? And if it's been updated, we don't have any permits about it. So she sets up a timeline for herself, like a reminder, and in 6 weeks call them back. And that's how the process comes through. So that's how they follow through. We want them to do, get it done also. But it's just an ongoing process. Some of it's more involved. It could be elevators, fire alarm systems, a new roof, it could be a million things. Some buildings fly through it, some of them have a little more trouble.
Thank you.
Okay, next person. Juan. Say it again? Jarena.
Juan Llarena, 1155 103rd Street. During this election, you get to talk to a lot of people, so I wanted to share with you some quality of life things that people brought up. One of them is better walking paths. The green paint is a step in the right direction, but not enough. People want what Surfside is doing, one-way streets in some cases where there's more room and cars aren't barreling at you. More walking space or a path west of the bridge. There used to be one through the grass, and that was taken out. Maybe we can put that back. Of course, the ongoing bridge, which only has 3 feet.
He's talking about after the bridge.
On the causeway.
West of the bridge.
West of the bridge. So after the bridge where the
It is,
grass...
it's a valid point.
No, well, the good news is we've been working, JC, and with the state. We have a grant of approximately $1.3 million, and we're almost at the final approval phase. We'll be resurfacing the entire the entire Causeway Island, and we will be opening up the shoulders, I think approximately almost 7 feet.
No, but Ron, what he's saying is, after you walk the bridge, then you go down and you walk kind of on that grass.
Yes, we're going to expand it. We're going to create a walking location for that.
Okay.
Wait, hold on.
For bikes and for the...
Let me ask you, you're going to separate it from the road, or it's just going to be wide?
No, it's going to be a widened shoulder.
Well, rather than do that, for safety reasons, why wouldn't we, we don't even have to pave it. There are ways to make it look more natural with, some form of mulch or whatever else, but like there's a thinner mulch, that just doing a path along the side that's separated by a little grass. That's cheap to do, it'll look nicer, and it's probably a little, right, exactly. So it's safer.
For walking.
Because the fact of the matter, people start speeding over the bridge, and the fact that you're going to have an extra couple feet doesn't mean someone's not going to get nailed by a car. But separating by grass a little bit, it's easy to do.
Can we look at that?
And it's
Yeah,
cheaper.
well,
It's a
I
lot
can talk
cheaper.
to...
Can we, though, the reason we haven't done it in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know this has come up before, is that we needed FDOT's approval to be able to do it, correct?
Right.
Because I know that I've gotten emails from residents in the past and we've inquired about it. Florida Department of Transportation actually had to approve us being able to do what we wanted to do there to be able to have those walking paths.
Well, let's see if we can. Okay, hit the clock. Thank you, sorry.
Okay, so we've covered that, and then the other thing is that people talk about, of course, is the bridge itself. It's only 3 feet wide at best, very dangerous to cross, very unpleasant, and that's a tough one. Left turn at 96th Street and West Bay Harbor Drive during, the non-busy times. That's another FDOT request. The other thing is digital signage, which I know you guys have talked about in the past to announce community activities. Better signage for the 96th Street and 95th Street business districts. And finally, I do want to say that, you learn a lot helping someone campaign. And I am a personal witness to the behavior of then Vice Mayor Bruder, and it was very bad. As a veteran, I am especially offended. I have lost faith in you completely. And I think you owe the people of this town an apology because you interfered with democracy. And essentially, that's what we veterans are here for. We serve for democracy. And you interfered with that process, and there's Supreme Court cases regarding electioneering. And so what you did was egregious and wrong. And you did it in front of one of your residents.
Yes.
And I also observed, and it's my opinion,
Who voted for Mayor Leonard?
it's my opinion that your family's buildings are the worst on this island. They look horrible. You owed money on your water bill, I found out, over $100,000. And I've also heard that interest was not charged. So this should be looked at. This is wrong. So I expect that apology to everybody in this town.
Okay. Linda.
Mayor Silver?
Mayor Silver.
I would like to congratulate Jordan on becoming president of the Dade League. I also would like to discuss the Dade League of Cities, which we, the taxpayers, pay for membership in the Dade League, and also for the delegates and alternate delegates to have their dinners there. My son, Judge Martin Zilber, is also a member of Dade League, but does not live in our town. At the last Dade League, when Jordan became the president, our alternate, Kelly Reed, was there. She went up to my son, the judge, to complain constantly about me. Also requested that they take a picture of her and him together. And then, which is practically unheard of, I don't remember if it was ever done, when it came to voting on the slate, President Jordan and the rest of the slate from the various towns, our alternate was the one no vote in the room. So they could not have a unanimous vote, which is just not done. So I don't feel that this alternate represents the taxpayers, over 50% of the residents in Bay Harbor Island, because she's supposed to represent us, not her. I don't believe she represents over 50% of the people that live here and does not represent our town. So I am requesting that you take a vote now to have her removed as the alternate, so she should not be at the Dade League.
I'd like to address these. If you've stopped and the clock is stopped, I would like to comment. First of all, we can all go to these, okay? All 6 or 7 of us can go to any of these dinners, not just the alternate or the member. Okay, well, let me finish. That night, like I stated, was to be our Meet the Candidates Forum, and that is a priority, is what's going on in this town. Not going over there and getting an award, a self-aggrandizing award. And I didn't approach your son to complain about him. I know your son.
Complain about me.
Stop interrupting me.
No, then state it correctly as I stated it.
No.
You complained to him about me, so say it the way it was.
What I will say, because I was there and you were not there, Madam.
And my son, the judge, is a liar?
Please control the meeting. You must control the meeting.
Let's have a little respect.
The respect that I have, and I will say what I said to Martin Zilber, who is known to me and a lovely person, and I very nicely said to him, Martin, I have a little problem. Your mother, she comes in here and attacks me, which is true. You do it here personally, and you do it on a little website called Nextdoor. You tell lies about me in writing, okay?
Wrong.
Paul, sit down.
Paul, I'm not sitting down.
No, okay.
I'm not sitting down to allow that woman to attack Linda for no reason whatsoever.
I'm defending myself. I'm defending myself. I'm defending myself.
You did it.
Don't get your hand away from me.
Josh, can you adjourn the meeting? Well, I think we need to take an adjournment. I'm going to motion for adjournment for 5 minutes. Thank you. 5 minutes adjournment, please.
Oh, my daughter, too.
I request. Okay, we gotta get back to business, please.
Okay,
Excuse me?
Okay. Mayor Zilber, are we done? I think we're done. Right? I think so.
I think once we hit, and with respect to all parties involved, I think once we hit the timeline, we need to make sure that we're following procedure.
Okay.
I don't think that there's anything else. When it is correct for you to take a vote, if not at this meeting, I would appreciate it at the next meeting, and I will be glad to talk about it then.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, so to continue the defense, okay? Yes, I'm entitled to a defense. Don't oh God me. So I spoke. No, but when in public comment, one is attacked, I have the right. No, I think she should sit down.
Wait, you're going to talk about me, but I should sit down and not be up here when you're going
This is not a debate. I can rebut.
Okay.
I will answer it. I have to.
Stop this nonsense.
Kathleen.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Let's call Kathleen now.
I'm calling Kathleen Kennedy, if you'd like. Thank you.
Deep breath. Kathleen Kennedy, I don't even know where I live now. Anyway.
From the last 5 minutes, it might be help. Sorry, Kathleen.
9180 West Bay Harbor Drive. I want to say something that you said good tonight, Kelly, about my good friend Doris Morano. But for your information, Regina, are you back there? Twice I brought this in front of the Parks and Recreation about Doris Morano. Okay? Twice. And it was we were going to put a plaque on the bench overlooking the causeway. Am I correct, Regine? Yes, you were. I brought it to the council, and I guess what do they call it? It died. She was my dear, dear friend, so I thank you for bringing her name back up. Just for your information, we're bringing up at the next Parks and Recs meeting, something that she always wanted, and Ron is probably going to kill me, but she wanted some water sports on the causeway of some sorts. So I'm going to see if we have an open mind on that. Regarding the regime, regarding this gentleman, J.C., who doesn't get enough credit, and Sean, and the police department here, we have the best. We had standing room only. We had to open up the petitions, right, Bob? And who else was... And Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you were amazing with them little children. We have to partner together and do things together, because I saw you in there, no fanfare, no nothing, and you were in there with them little children, and it was just beautiful watching you. I think we all saw it, and we should all try and get along. Enough is enough. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think the last name is Stupa, 77... Is it, no. First name?
Can't read that.
No. First name? Camden Drive. Yes. Thank you. Reed.
You didn't make me use my legal name. This is one of my few times that I've spoken before this council. I am usually...
Sorry, name and address.
Oh, my name and address. It was just given. Ree Kelly Stopa, 77 Camden. I'm predominantly Bell Harbor. I find this absolutely unbelievable, how people can disrespect the council, that can disrespect the residents, that have total disregard for what is possibly right and possibly wrong. There should be some type of required behavior instead of attacking people that sit on the dais. You work for $1 a year. It's not like you're making a fortune up there. And the insults are outlandish. I mean, for the gentleman, and I don't know him obviously, but to say to our mayor that her buildings are the worst in Bay Harbor Islands, that's his opinion. And if we're going to rely on everybody's opinion, well, I may not like the color of Kelly Reed's hair. So am I going to attack her for her hair color? I think the issues are so prevalent that are much more important issues to me, like the BDS movement. I think that needs to be addressed full-faced and dealt with integrity. And even if we disagree on something, let's do it with respect for one another. This yelling and screaming and attacks don't make Bay Harbor Islands look very friendly to people that would buy houses here or come before the council. To get a personal attack because you have a different belief or you have a different opinion. That's what this country's about. And I'm ashamed for the people, some of them who have spoken. I'm ashamed that the council has to put up with this nonsense. And I think there should be decorum. And if decorum isn't honored, then I think you should put their rear ends outside the door, escorted by the chief, and said, when you learn how to behave, even you council members, when you don't know how to behave, remove yourselves, because the attacks must stop. You have bigger issues. You have families that live here, children that live here. They're more important than your personal likes and dislikes. And I'm sorry to be lecturing you, but I think sometimes an outsider sees things a lot differently than somebody that has been sitting here for a longer time. I'm thrilled that Stephanie Bruder is mayor. Josh, from what I understand from you from Stanley Tate, you're an outstanding young man. And I think, if you all just think a little bit before you open your mouth, excuse me, could you pay attention? Not you. Well, I guess she's too busy. Again, respect for one another. Lack of respect, I don't think can be tolerated.
Thank you.
And I hope you don't tolerate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Harry Bruder.
Does that make him like the first lady?
Harry Bruder, 1281 94th Street.
You've been named the first lady now.
Congratulations.
We just voted on it.
Bring her wig next week.
So, congratulations, Josh, and Stephanie. I also was out on the campaign trail and campaigning for Jordan, and I also heard some things that were disturbing. Especially disturbing, and I take a lot of pride in living here. I've been here 24 years, and I think I'm a pretty good guy. I'm not Dillinger or Al Capone. I mean, the way we're talking to each other up there, you would think the Nazi regime was running this town. But it's not really happening. The Herald just voted this town the #1 town in Dade County. The last time I heard, the school was the top 10 schools in the state of Florida. The police department, this got to be the top 3 safest towns in Florida.
Yes.
I mean, the way we're talking around here, you think we were living in Warsaw during the World War II. I mean, this is one of the finest places in the universe. The personal attacks, I really take this offensively. 41 years he's been serving us. 41 years, Kelly, he's been serving us. 41 years he's been serving us. Whether you agree or disagree on the one time you feel like he might have done something that you don't agree with, he doesn't deserve, his legacy doesn't have to be scampered like that. Marlene, who's day in and day out to serve this town, it hurts me when I see this. It really hurts me when Ron, I just want to let you know, Ron was out 6 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning during the hurricane. We had the best recovery in the state of Florida. The best recovery in the state of Florida. The best recovery in the... Shut up when I talk. You're not even with me very well. Relax. Relax. We know you're all warning.
He's not supposed to address them.
We know.
You're not.
I react to it. I react to you, Kelly, for a year and a half fighting with Jordan. It's like an embarrassment.
It takes two ways.
Shut up, I'm talking. When I
You
talk,
really?
you talk.
Really? No, because you allowed it with everyone else, and I'm taking, you're attacking. You're letting him attack me.
Kelly,
You're letting him attack me,
You're an
Steve.
embarrassment to the city.
No, you
You're
are,
an
Harry.
embarrassment.
No, you
You're
are.
an embarrassment.
This is.
You're a horror show. You're a horror show. You're just looking you're looking to nitpick on every single person. We're one of the best towns in the universe, and
Okay.
oh my
Thank
God,
you.
it's like
Thank you.
fact,
This is what I knew would happen. This is what I knew would happen.
fact.
You cannot control him.
Harold just
You're
made
hypocrites.
top
The last
candidate.
3 or 4
We
people,
had a
here
lien
comes
on the
another
bill. Just let you know,
hypocrite.
we had a lien on the
This
bill.
is a
Trust me.
circus right
That's
here.
an illegal thing.
Thank you, thank you.
Unbelievable.
Yes, for Harry. Okay. Peter Evans.
Is there clapping allowed? Because I used to hear Jordan, no clapping with the gavel all the time. It depends who you are here. It's hypocrisy at its finest. Look at this.
Harry, out.
You're a nightmare to this town.
Fran, you were called up.
And you're a nightmare.
Francis Newhart.
Ready for me now.
You're a sight for sore eyes.
Okay. I can speak by myself. Okay.
My best audience.
First of all, I'm happy and would like to thank candidate Francis Newhart, 1060 Kane Concourse. I am happy and would like to thank candidate Victor Meyer for making our April 10th, 2018 town election possible. I also was going to discuss, in my own words, and I had a pile maybe this high of what's going on with these elections. And I could date back as far back as 2008, 2007. But I noticed a letter that was sent to the Miami Herald that really states, and it's not from me, so you might listen because she's a very popular person here. And this was a letter written by her to the Miami Herald about the elections. And this was before we used to not allow candidates or incumbents not to have meet the candidates. We used to have them. I'm writing a letter as a citizen of one of the last municipalities that does not have term limits. We have town council members that have been serving since April 1996 until the present, with 3 appointed to their positions before running in an election. Miami Beach commissioners, if appointed to serve a term, cannot run in the next election. We did not have any elections in 2005, 2006, and 2011. I'm sure there have been, since then, no elections. This is 2012. When the occasional election was held, the incumbent would have the advantages of access to the cable TV, the town newspaper, a sympathetic town staff, and campaign contributions from developers, vendors, and lobbyists. 4 of the challengers, or candidates, were charged with frivolous elections filed by incumbents or their allies. Another is facing a large fine from code compliance. This is in 2012. I don't even think Victor lived here at this time. The last one was involved with multiple lawsuits with the town involving the boundaries of his property. The incumbents state that no one is interested in running for council. If that were true, why do multiple individuals apply every time for the appointed positions of town council? With all the advantages that incumbents enjoy and the risk of running against them, why would anyone dare to run? Not surprisingly, the incumbents and their appointed committees have consistently voted down term limits. Why do they fight so hard to continue at $1 a year position and prevent new people with different viewpoints and ideas from running? If there's something not apparent to the rest of us, the only way to ensure democracy
and change instead of following the party line in my town is through term limits.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I want to thank the person who wrote the letter. Thank you very much. It says here, Catherine Kay.
Remember that one, huh?
Someone used your name. Someone used your name.
Leslie? Is there a Leslie Canute? Okay.
Very well written.
She left?
She left?
She left, okay. Paul Ruth.
Paul Ruthfield.
I feel bad that we didn't speak. She came, her address is listed as Anchorage.
Oh, my goodness.
Can we make sure that everyone who comes up
Coming up here
understands?
very
Hold
calm.
on one moment, Mr. Ruthfield.
My name is Paul Ruthfield.
Just one
One second,
moment.
one second,
Let's,
Paul.
I'd like to take a second. Let's just remind everyone that this is a community, right? And we may disagree with each other, which we have all done.
Right.
But let's try to be as respectful to each other as humanly
I
possible.
will attempt to be as respectable as
Thank you,
earned.
Mr. Ruthfield.
As respectful as earned. I would just like to state that having been a resident here, not for a long time, nowhere near the length of time that many of you have been, I have noted one thing. I have noted that there are some people who take their position and attempt to make their position more important, frankly, than it is. There are many problems in this world that need addressing. But one of the problems that doesn't need addressing is when someone takes in their own hands and attempts to, with their own voice, because of a position, do things that are reprehensible. For someone sitting on the dais of this council, who's busy taking notes and not paying any attention to what anybody's saying, as she did before, as she did in front of others before.
Hearing, I can do whatever I like.
Are you finished? Writing instead of paying attention?
I hear every word you're saying. Would you like me to assume a particular position? I'm listening to you and I'm staying quiet. Stop
Well,
attacking
according
me.
to your,
Stop it.
JC, stop the clock.
Continue.
according to
Excuse
the
me,
way
Paul,
you're
excuse
acting.
me, and to somebody else who said that also, you know, many of us have, I don't know what our different jobs are, but, you know, in this day and age, all of us multitask. I mean, I look at my kids, you know, they're studying and they've got their phone and their iPads and everything else. We all do, you know, we do this I'm a lawyer, I do this in court, you know, while there are hearings going on. We can multitask. We can certainly listen to a speaker and look at our phone or our iPad or whatever it is at the...
Or sit and write notes. But anyways,
Jason.
it is my opinion, and my opinion alone, that treatment of people is more important than their position that they're doing it from. And it is my position that when someone is willing to attack others, they have to be willing to be attacked themselves. Otherwise, there's no sense to it. There's no sense to it at all. I am purposely not mentioning any names, but I'm sure names will be mentioned by others. I'm sorry that I lost my temper before. But before anyone lies and attacks Linda, I will stand up and protect her, whether it's protection or not. I will protect her. I will not allow anyone to sit and or stand and do anything like
Thank you
that.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Stacy?
39271 West Bay Harbor Drive. I am so disgusted, I don't even know where to begin. I'm born and raised here. I grew up with your wife. I know many of you for many years. I can hardly stand to come to a town council meeting. In fact, I don't. I'm sure you've noticed. I don't come. Because when I have to sit here and listen to this, I'm so horrified at the way you all treat each other, at the way some people in here have been on one side, then on the other. They're friendly, they're not friendly, they use each other to get what they want. I think we have bigger issues. And I don't think that you all are listening to the citizens of Bay Harbor Islands and the people who pay taxes here. You may think you are, but you're not. And that, to me, is incredibly sad. The things that we want are maybe different from what you want. And listen, if there's one council member I can talk to, or two, I'm happy to do that. And the fact that all of you seem to not give that person a chance to have a voice is really appalling to me. So that's all I'm going to say about it. But it should change, because there are so many people that I know that won't come here because they can't stand to sit through this. And when I see you all attack each other, I'm sad for you. Just sad that you can treat another human being, whether you like them or not, in that way is disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to just say a word on the heels of that. You know, I'm not afraid to sometimes ask the tough questions or make the tough statements. And I think I make a big effort, even if I have to say it tactfully. And I don't think I should be vilified for my perspective, especially when I'm representing my constituents and they believe it. So I will always try to say things civilly. It's not easy, you know, but I was once told it used to be so much nicer before you came here because we all agreed. But that's not really the goal here, is that we should all agree if there's something that really needs to be discussed. And, you know, I'm going to make one collective statement about like 3 or 4 people here. A, I don't lie at all. I can back up everything that I have ever said in writing and here with facts. And yes, what Stacey, you just said so eloquently, there is this constant shifting with people back and forth. They hated this one threw them out, you know, and you're right, because you're going to see that there's going to be some payoff. There's a reason why you go from being a staunch opponent, spending tens of thousands of dollars in campaigns, running against people, hiring private investigators, and very interesting things that have gone on here in the past. It's laughable to me, having been on the inside of some of this. If you only knew, you know, I just can't believe it. So I predict that the payoff is going to be naming rights, that some people here want their name on a building or a room or a park or a sign, and that's going to be the payoff that you see. Thank you.
You know, just to mention a comment, the only naming that we've ever talked about here is you bringing up, like, Doris Morano's
It's the only naming? Really?
It's the only
We
naming.
didn't name a room at the community center? Really? We didn't name a park after Scott
I'm like at
Winters?
the end of like a fraternity
You
meeting or
just-
something.
you
We
just
haven't-
will-
It's 10 o'clock at night, honestly, you guys, it's 10
Consent.
o'clock at night. We haven't done a stitch of
Consent.
business
Run the
here.
consent.
It's
Okay,
this
let's
is
move
this is
on.
incredible. This is beyond
And it's
words.
because of the speakers.
We're on the consent.
Let's move to
I mean,
the
that's
consent.
it's insane. I've never seen this.
I'll move it.
Yeah, go look.
I'll move the consent.
Let's look at it.
I'll second the consent agenda.
Do we have a first and a second?
Yep, we have
Yes.
first and second.
Okay.
You just-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 6.
Item 6, consideration approval of an ordinance on second reading requested by Councilmember Leonard relating to bicycle parking on sidewalks, streets, right-of-way, and public property in the town.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 18 of the town's adopted Code of Ordinances entitled Streets and Sidewalks by adding Section 1811 entitled Bicycle Parking, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Here's your one.
Up, Mrs. Newhart.
Can I just throw in while Ms. Newhart's coming up? We had an opportunity to meet with Lime Bike to kind of kick this off, and they're modifying their app so that if you ride through the town, like as if you were going to Miami Beach, it's a red zone on their map, so if you leave your bike there, you're going to get zinged for a...
Well, I don't get electrical shock.
No. Well, your wallet might. Your wallet might. So.
One thing, if I'm not mistaken, were they just bought by Uber? I think they may have just been bought, so...
I don't know, but they were very agreeable and... to let you know.
So we're being more welcoming or not welcoming?
No, we're very welcoming. If we find the bikes, we take them in.
Electric shock.
Right.
But the first couple of weeks, we were bringing in about 10 bikes a week, maybe. Now it's maybe 1 or 2.
I think the key is really the compliance. When I spoke to the head guy at Lime Bike, who's like in California, the concept is that they GIS map all of our bike rack stations, so that way the people that do leave the bikes, that they leave them in an appropriate place, so that way, that it's not in the street or in front of someone's home or apartment building or in a parking. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I see them in North Miami and other cities, and it's a little ridiculous. And they want to participate. They want the business. There are a lot of residents that actually prefer Lime Bike. So, I'm all for entrepreneurship. So I think as long as they hold up their end, I think we have a good working relationship.
Not to, Mrs. Newhart, I apologize, I know you're standing there. Where are we at in the bike racks? I know we had talked about the ones on King Concourse, and then we brought up bringing them up into some of the parking lots.
They've been ordered, just waiting delivery.
I apologize, Mrs. Newhart.
They've been ordered, just waiting delivery.
Okay, so they are coming online. Okay, perfect.
Okay, Francis Newhart, 1060 Kane Concourse. When I read this, the first thing I saw were for bicycles. And when you open the comments made by Mr. Sherman and also the exhibit, it specifically talks about safety. And the safety that they're talking about is, or the purpose of this section is to restrict interference with the flow of pedestrian and vehicular traffic. I think someone came up here about these green stripes being too small, and we're supposedly not, and it states here again that this green space or this green line or whatever, the Green Path project involved painting dedicated bike lanes. Well, they're not dedicated bike lanes. I don't see the emblem for bikes.
No, it's
not.
not.
It's shared between the pedestrian and the bikes. And as I said, this is jumping the gun. We have to face the same problems that Surfside is facing right now, and that's pedestrian passageways. And if you're telling me those bicycle paths or whatever they are, they're not safe. That's the bottom line. They're not safe. You haven't put a bicycle line on there or a symbol of a bicycle because they aren't safe. You haven't hidden parking here. You don't have sidewalks. It's dangerous. So before we jump to these bicycles and having more bicycles running over the pedestrians, I think we have to get our act together on safety. And one of the things we have to do is have sidewalks, not bicycle paths, sidewalks, or one-way streets with bigger green stripes. But this is not the answer to our problems that we're having today. So before we jump into this, can you please look at the real issue in this town? Thank you.
I do have a question, Ron, about the icons on the green path. Do we plan on putting some bike or any kind of icon?
I'll talk to Randy about it. I really wasn't, but, I think we were just making sure that the green stripe path stood up
I believe
before we start marking.
When we did it, we talked about putting the chevron so that
Right.
it was designated as mixed use when we originally had
Yes.
talked about it.
We just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, but I mean, just for a little edification in regards to this item, this is not about the green walking paths. This is about allowing us to have the ability to be on a more level playing field with a company that already does business in our town. And if you don't pass it, fine. But the next time residents complain about all these Lime bikes hanging out, in the right-of-way, in the sidewalks, in the street, on their property, and you can't do anything about it, just remember, this was the one that would have prevented that from happening. This is all that it is.
Right, this just gives us the right, because the legislature gave us a window.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's,
So, okay.
so it's been moved,
So, moved in second, all those in favor?
Aye. It's a poll vote.
Oh, poll vote, okay.
Councilmember Yaffe,
4.
Councilmember Chicoche,
4.
Councilmember Saber,
4.
Councilmember Reed, 4. Councilmember Leonard,
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller,
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Item 7, consideration and approval of an ordinance on first reading, amending section 23-12-6 of the Town Code related to floating vessel platforms and floating boat lifts.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 23 of the town's adopted Code of Ordinances entitled Zoning and Planning, amending Section 2312 entitled General Provisions to modify Section 2312-6 relating to floating vessels, vessel platforms, and floating boat lifts, creating regulations for such docking facilities, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
I'll move it.
Second, any second?
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second. Thank you.
All right, whose ever idea was to publish these changes in green, that was a little bit cruel. Because it's really hard to read the green part, and I'm sure that that's probably the most important part of this. That's why you highlight it not only in yellow, but in green. Is that a correct assumption?
It's the second change.
Second.
Second change.
It's a second
Is it
change.
second?
Since last time.
The yellow was the original change.
And the green is the...
So where does this leave, the existing floating docks in the town?
Just where they are.
We, the way we've drafted it, the existing docks could stay unless they were in the setback area, which is the same standard we use for all docks in this community for 40, 50 years.
Okay, my question, is anybody else?
Go ahead. No.
My question, so we are going in here and limiting, essentially, there's no commercial use, no docking, everything else. I'm not sure if that's our intent or not. And I just want to see what everybody's thought was on that, because if we do have, one of the assets here for some certain buildings is their dock space, and whether or not you have somebody who might be an owner that may rent out the unit or whatever else, but uses the dock space, that's an asset. Secondly, you also have the scenario where technically, if somebody wanted to pull up at one of the hotels and stay there, stay in the hotel but pull their boat there, this would prohibit that. So I don't think the restriction on commercial was what we were intending here. We really want to just do something to require maintenance of the floating docks more than anything else.
Pretty much, but we took maybe a little wider view of that. Again, you own the water. Nobody has a right to be using your public property.
I understand, but I don't want to restrict their rights to use their property.
If you live up next to a national forest, you can't just commercialize and use the national forest for your personal use. This is a waterway that's kind of waters of the state.
Give the federal government time, they'll be let you have a national park, right?
And I've recommended that maybe you want to consider licensing some of these facilities, not necessarily for revenue, but for control. The hotels, other people like that in the future. That's something, I don't know why we haven't
I understand,
done
but wouldn't we be better off changing the language? I know we're back now here in a second, but doing something along the lines of, no floating use shall be absent a license or something along those lines, because if anybody has an asset, whether it be an individual person who owns a condominium, let's just say you have somebody who has a condominium and has a right, and I don't know which building would have it or whatever, but has the right to one of the dock space, and they say, you know what, I'm not going to use it, but my best friend wants to be able to come, take me fishing every few days, and he wants to leave it there, or if a building wanted the asset there, technically they'd be in violation, and that's not our intent here.
I believe there's a restriction on our docks that cannot be commercial already in the charter language. So
We
you
know
cannot
this,
have commercial activity.
Well, we were just being told right now that you're saying to potentially create revenue out of it. So what you're saying?
No, just
So you're withdrawing that.
Control.
Okay, that's.
Anybody else?
I've got an issue with that.
Anybody else have any questions from the council? Oh, wait for Paul. Okay. Wait, no. David?
Thank you. My name is David Arano. I'm at 10350 West Bay Harbor Drive. I'm sorry. I live at 10350 West Bay Harbor Drive. And I just wanted to make a few comments about the proposal. There's already an existing regulation that deals with damage to seawalls. I'm not sure that this regulation does much more than that, except add an additional burden to get an engineer to review the seawall and then file for your permit. So if the goal is to try to protect seawalls, the existing regulations can already deal with that. If a neighbor sees that a seawall is cracking, he can call code compliance, they can come down, look at it, issue a violation, and order the owner to repair it. So if that's the goal, then I'm not sure how this is really going to help, except make the cost for citizens who want to use the waterways and use their boats or jet skis and make it much more expensive, time-consuming, and difficult. In addition, there's nothing in the report from, I guess, the engineer or planner that said that jet skis would have any impact on seawalls or views or anything else. They really should be. They're so small. They don't have any real impact in any way, shape, or form on them. So I think they should definitely be exempted. If it's a very large boat, maybe that's an issue. But there should be a finding from an engineer that if you do bolt into a seawall, that it's dangerous, because in the absence of that, it's just creating additional regulation when you already have an existing regulation that will deal with the problem. And that's pretty much my point.
Thank you so much for your comments. Kathleen Kennedy?
Kathleen Kennedy, 9180 West Bay Harbor Drive. We just hired an engineer for our building, the Bay Rock, and I'm just going to pass this around. He did pictures of our seawall. This is only about the seawall, nothing about the floating docks. But there's many, many pictures there of cracked seawalls. And I know that 10 years ago, we were rated number 2 as far as the condition of our seawall. My only issue is, just like I brought it to the issue about the bridge 11 years ago, I'm bringing it about the seawall now. We need to protect our seawalls. There's tons of cracked seawalls here. So if you're going to have a floating dock, and I'm not against a floating dock, you cannot drill it into the seawall. And that's my issue, because that's the result of it right there. It's been cracked and cracked and pulled. And then last night there was a boat I was watching. I too bad it was videotape. It was swinging from a seawall, and I'm like, oh my God. So just think it out. But I'm not against the floating dock. But when that boat tries to come up on that floating dock, it's impounding that seawall. I have a neighbor of mine who has an amazing floating dock, really done very, very well. We should all follow what he does, and I think we could be safe then. Okay, so just FYI.
Thank you so much. Scott?
Scott Hanna, 9160 West Bay Harbor Drive. I had printed out a statement that you may all have, and I was going to read into this evening. I decided not to read that statement. A good friend of mine suggested that it might be unnecessarily, what was the term? Nasty was the term. After reading Mr. Miller's memo, which mentioned me individually, besides mentioning me individually, I was pretty upset about a lot of things. And so I put it on paper. I had very little time to do that. I was supposed to get that information when it came in, but it wasn't delivered to me until a couple hours before this meeting. Anyway, please read that. Please understand I was upset when I wrote it, but there's a great deal of good information other than my attitude in it.
Personality.
Yeah, right. And more importantly, this, as much as I love this lady is sitting behind me, she's my neighbor, she's my friend, she's a confidant, I adore her personality and her spunk. I gotta tell you, she's wrong about the potential damage of plastic air-filled floating docks potentially damaging concrete. I asked her personally, as well as the owner of the floating dock, if I could come and look at what she was so concerned about. I took pictures, and the pictures in my inspection, although I'm not an engineer, I know quite a bit about construction based on my past career. I observed absolutely positively no structural damage associated with the dock itself. Please give me a little bit more time, I'm about to run out. Absolutely none. Are there some very small structural issues on her seawall? Yes, but they are not derived from the drill holes, whereas the only contact with the seawall or its cap with this floating dock. And although I understand her perspective in seeing the boat come up on a floating dock, it does make a bit of noise, and it seems like it's being pushed into the seawall, but it's not. It's being pushed into the mooring poles, which are attached to the top of the seawall. But the fact of the matter is, this ordinance is beyond overreaching. It honestly is unnecessary in so many ways, and it's limiting everybody's use of the waterways. Please reconsider it. Please give us more time to address these. And before voting on anything, please send out notices to all the floating dock owners, which Kelly had mentioned several times and hasn't been done.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Just so everybody's aware that anybody who has a floating dock is getting to keep their floating dock. The town regulates all docks, piers, poles, anything that's attached to the seawall, to the house. Floating docks fall outside of that, and that's what kind of brought this up. I happen to agree with Scott that there is very little potential damage of a floating dock that's floating up and down on mooring poles. I think it is important, though, because not everybody's CCAP is in the same condition, that it would be wise just to have somebody sign off on it, look at it. Takes 10 minutes. Most engineers can look at something like that and say, and look, that's not a good situation there. I can show you a couple of seat caps right now that are crumbling, the rebar is sticking out of them. So it's more of a safety issue. It's better for them. You wouldn't want a floating dock breaking loose, not that it would, but it could. And I do agree that a floating dock would not damage a seawall if no boat is on it. But when you put any kind of vessel on a floating dock, and then that starts to bang into something that has a little more force and energy. So I think this is not an intrusion. I think it's just really a way to make sure if you're putting it in, good luck to you. Just make sure it's affixed right and doesn't whip away and go anywhere.
Let me ask him, because I want a little more clarification on the charter rule in there. You said there's no commercial, that's for any kind of leasing it or anything along those lines, but it doesn't mean that you can't utilize it.
No, it's
all?
supposed to be for the use of the residents on the town. As far as I understood,
In the charter, we went around the state.
Yeah, we went to the
I don't remember, I mean, it's
The state
under
is
the charter,
very-
but that one doesn't, I don't recall.
We're
that.
not allowed to use anything.
In other words, so
dock.
with the hotel, if they had somebody who was staying in the hotel, they wanted to pull their boat up to the hotel and go in, and they're not paying anything additional for the dock, that would not be allowed?
When you say, you're describing just like a regular dock that's against the seawall, where someone could
Either
tie
way.
up to a piling?
Either way.
I don't know if
Because
they
we're
would
talking about
charge
here
a-
regulating and potentially, I mean, if it's already in the charter, it's done, so it becomes moot. But if it's not, this lists out specific regulation that says we can't do anything commercial, and commercial is a pretty broad statement, and that's where I'd have a problem. I want to make sure, what Kathleen wants here, I understand, and I understand the need for it, but at the same time, I don't want to start taking away private rights.
I don't think we're limiting anybody, and I don't think we've ever...
There are no and I'm sorry, Scott's not going to like this, but there are
I know
no private
private
rights
rights, I
because
understand,
the town owns the bay bottoms, and that's where the floating docks are and the docks are. And the other side that is not owned by the town is leased from the state on the other side of the island. That's where Mr. Miller was bringing up that
Understand.
comment. The town has never wanted to lease the lands that we own in between the islands and on the ends of the
No, I understand,
tips.
but I'm just saying, I'm just trying not to create an additional regulation where one doesn't need to be, and that's...
When we started this exercise, I thought we were just going to really require property owners that are putting up a floating dock to make an application to the town, hey, we're putting up a floating dock, this is a drawing,
Right.
and this way the town knows what's going on, and, we can tell the property owner, well, you're in compliance, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't know how this really gained so much, wheels and grew kind of a life of its own that we're like...
Well, any plan would be reviewed. I mean, from an engineering perspective, most of us would agree with that.
Right.
Seems pretty simple.
Okay, so...
But not everybody does things the same way, and it's really...
something much larger.
It's not a big...
I'd like to see what other cities have done, more of a comparison. I think that probably would shed a little bit more light. It's one thing to hear from a few residents and to hear from what we individually think. I think it's another thing to say, well, Miami Beach, North Bay Village, Bal Harbor, Surfside, this is their regulations or this is where they lack, and kind of have a comparison. Miami Beach is very strict. I mean, God only knows how thick their ordinance is dealing with docks, but I'd like to see what other cities have, because I don't want to be too stringent, but I think there needs to be a middle ground as to what is, where we're protecting the town's interests and all the residents' interests, whereas the comparison is, we don't want to be too overburdening. And I think that's what the vice mayor's mentioned.
And let me tell you, I don't want to look at Miami Beach. I want to look at cities like Palatka, Florida, or Fernandina Beach, or some of the smaller municipalities that have like 5,000, 6,000 people.
Golden Beach.
So Golden Beach is, I don't know if that's a good comparison either, but...
Even Surfside, they're close to us. They're bigger than us, but they're close to us.
So hold on, here's the question.
Yeah, but...
It was moved and seconded before. Who moved and who seconded it?
I think I moved.
Do you guys want to withdraw that?
Yes.
Okay, then we can move on.
Okay,
All right.
great.
There you go.
Doesn't mean it's not coming back at some point.
Right, but
It just means
because
Don't throw that
we want another letter like this.
Consideration...
Start selling the land behind your buildings.
Consideration and approval of an ordinance on first reading amending town code to provide enhanced outdoor lighting requirements.
The Bay Bottom.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 10 of the town's Code of Ordinances entitled Housing by modifying Section 10.1 and 10.2, amending Chapter 23 entitled Zoning and Plotting by modifying Section 23.19 to provide enhanced outdoor lighting requirements, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
No enhanced lighting.
It's already hit twice. Can I?
I'm not moving this.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, go for it.
Quickly, we've been talking about this for the last few months. You've had regulations on your books since 1969. They're a little dated. We looked at many other ordinances. There's model ordinances that are recommended. We think this encapsulates the essence of what we thought you were looking for.
What do you need?
It's fairly minimal. It follows the foot candle readings that most cities use at property lines. We toned down the language on the single family so you don't get a permit, but you need to meet the criteria that we talked about last month. And that's pretty much it from
I've got the same issues, though, to some extent on that. Is that, one, you toned down on the single family, but at the same time, you've got people retrofitting if it's after 5 years. So you're requiring something to happen. And I have a problem when you're not grandfathering in. If you've got somebody who's got a house or whatever, and it's been fine for the last 30, 40 years, to tell them they've got to now spend money to retrofit it, that just doesn't fly with me.
Where do you see that?
You've got expansion and remodeling, but you also have where is it below it? You had a thing for 5 years. existing development sites shall have up to 5
Paragraph
years.
you're reading.
I'm sorry, B2. Now, you have it under expansion and remodeling, but the way it's worded can be read, which is existing development sites shall have up to 5 years from the date of adoption of this code to retrofit the site lighting. That's not acceptable. So you have that scenario, plus, I mean, I understand taking single family out, but, you know, the way that I went through, you know, step by step on this one, and there were enough changes in here that still left questions. So, I mean, without going piecemeal, and I don't want to go, you know, piecemeal at this point, especially because we've got so many things going on, I'm not really sure, you know, why we would require people to start retrofitting.
I think if we have the 50% renovation attached to that on the single family, then it's reasonable because you're assuming then that you are going to have to do certain things. I think attaching the 50% on the single family.
But you're talking about
makes sense
interior, but the thing is, if someone doesn't touch an exterior, you know, and look, I'm thrilled that we're not requiring all kinds of research reports and everything else, but the idea that you're going to have, and look, the intent of this is right. I think, I really want to try and find some way to make this work so that we don't have some of these buildings and some of these homes where the lights are just intruding on other people. No question has to happen. But the wording here became more of a hodgepodge, in my view. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but because we're running out. I'm reading from B2, existing development site shall have up to 5 years from the date of adoption of this code to retrofit the site lighting. What exactly does that mean, Michael?
Exactly my point.
What do I have to do 5 years from now in my single-family house? I don't understand, you know, exactly what the requirement is.
Well, the idea is that if you have a spotlight, you know, I guess, and you're putting a new spotlight in, that you aim it down, or you can't even buy the old fixtures anymore. So when people write codes to retrofit and require people to come up to date, you give them a time certain. 5 years was pretty long time to upgrade things. So we're trying to make things better, to try to give a reasonable amount of time. What do I mean? What do I mean by 5 years to retrofit? It would be that if you have a spotlight pointing at your neighbor's bedroom window, that you don't do that anymore. That you're altering or
should
something.
never do that.
You
Pointing to somebody's
in the socket.
No, but you're not. That doesn't say if I have a light pointing at my neighbor's window. That says I basically have to redo all my lights.
Exactly.
In 5 years, even if they're pointing down or
because they're not exactly 1 foot above versus 8
right, or
years.
pointing at another area of my house. I mean, my house. I don't know. It doesn't matter about my house. I'm just saying. Well, I'm voting against this, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said before, I mean, I'm not trying to interrupt, but the fact of the matter is, you know, our intent, I think, here is, we all have, I think, the same general idea what we want to do, so we don't have those problems. But I think it's better to go back to the drawing board as far as how it's written and clarify a lot of these parts, because as I read through this stuff, it made a mess of it. I mean, usually you do a great job, but this one was not one of your finer works.
And if my light is pointing, I mean, you know, I've had neighbors who sometimes have a light pointing in the wrong direction. I knock on their door. I mean, I don't need to wait 5 years. I mean, I just really don't know what the purpose of that is.
You got to go 5 years with the spotlight.
No, I don't, you know, I don't want to redo all my lighting in 5 years.
3 years left.
This really is for expansion and remodeling.
It's one thing if you are remodeling, okay, but just to say that if you're not remodeling and 5 years go by from the enactment of this ordinance, that, you know, all of a sudden you have to start retrofitting your lighting, to me, doesn't make any sense.
And then when you do that, the electrical coding may have changed, and, you know, and then you have to do different boxes, different things. And what happens if your circuit breaker doesn't have this? And
I think this whole ordinance, you know, the nexus of this ordinance was the new developments in the multi-family island.
But that's right. Some of them have very bright lights.
And I think we wanted to have, you know, I think we wanted to have something on the books to enable the multifamily developments to navigate through their, you know, photonomics or whatever it's called, you know, their lighting plan. And because I know that I think at the Grand Beach Hotel there were people complaining next door that it's not just the obvious, not, their spotlights or anything like that, but just lighting from their hallways that emanated from, windows at the end of their hallways were, flashing on the neighboring properties. Either they weren't used to it or just it was an unreasonable amount of light coming from the interior of the building. But, I think if these guys have a problem with anything that relates to the residential, I think we should approve it at least for the, for the multifamily, for the multifamily developments, and maybe just strike all the single-family residential for now and then add something later if we need it.
Or do you want to withdraw it, have him come back for first reading with it corrected?
Yeah.
Better to bring it
Well,
back.
I have a question. What's happening right now with enforcement? Because I know, like, Sereno was brought to compliance, they complied. Ron, you were looking at those bright lights at O Residence, so just so we're not leaving anyone hanging.
They're working on them now, and,
It's really a voluntary thing.
yeah, it's more or less voluntary. They are totally violating the spillage, but that was because of a fire department, request, to get lighting on the pool area, and that's the residential.
I think that the ordinance really needs to focus on new development, because that's where we've been having the problem with, a lot of these new developments that they just light up the,
Well, no, we're talking
No,
about...
but we're not, because you're talking about retrofitting existing built residential, single-family...
Answering Kelly's question.
Okay, sorry. But I mean, because this is
Right.
wholesale applying to every building.
Come back with it.
What if we just strike, like, the
'Cause
single-family, just the whole part there?
If we do that, I'm sure if we did that, we're going to find flaws in the thing. I'd rather have it clean, but I don't mind having something in the single family, but something very simple along the lines
any
of,
public comment?
don't focus a light on your neighbor. I mean, obviously in different words, and that's it. I mean, you don't have to go into detail about retrofitting and things like that, but...
Because Kelly, also...
We don't... I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying, it's not just the single-family, there are a lot of, buildings on this island that are existing, and they're all going to have that same retrofit obligation in 5 years. There may not be a problem with the lights, and on a particular building, maybe there never was a problem.
Let's get a clean ordinance and
Do
do
we have
it.
any public comment?
There are, but I mean, it depends
Okay.
if the seconds are there, if the second comes off, or then we don't.
I would like to hear the public comment.
Do you withdraw?
I want to say two things. One is, so all of the developments that have been talked about are on my block. So I more than understand what it's like to have that happen, and I have the residents that on Sunday night and Saturday night are knocking on my door at 10 o'clock at night to talk about the lights that they have, so I understand that. I do think that we need something here, and I do think that there are portions of this that really do address some of these. I would actually like to see some additional components added to it with respect to the condo island. Sorry, it's super late. So what I'd like to do, and Kelly, I want to have an open discussion about this, is I think I want to withdraw and let's bring it back clean with addressing some of the things that we need.
Can I just ask, like by a show of hands, anybody who signed up for public comment really has a burning desire? Because you have three, maybe not all of them. Is there anybody that would you be open to that? That
Absolutely.
let somebody?
Absolutely.
By a show of hands, anyone who signed up?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you want to get your point across and can do it?
Oh, do you want to come up, sir?
Yeah. They won't be
Hi, good evening, Vincent Martino, 1050 93rd Street. I'm a little unclear about the new structures as they relate to the existing structures. For instance, the building behind us is about, there's a pool top roof and whatnot, and there's lights that go on, that are on at night, and they're on the entire night. So it affects the fifth, I'm on the 7th floor. The 7th, 6th, and 5th floors, the light goes down into half of the units. So I spoke to Michael last month. We were talking about some ways to mitigate it, and I thought maybe timers. I don't know whether or not that's possible. I don't know what the rules are for rooftop pools, if they have to be lit, what kind of candle footprint they have to have. I have no idea. But for sure, with all these new buildings going up and existing buildings, neighbors, I mean, they're so close, they're 30 feet away, about 50 feet away from our building. It's something that's going to come up continuously, and I know for us, for my particular family, it's annoying. We have to have the curtain, the window treatments drawn and all that. And it's something that should be addressed and we should look at for the future. And one thing the only experience that I've had with lighting for our condo association was when we went up for our 40-year recertification. We were told, and we had to implement, and we did, a amount of lighting, exterior lighting on our ground floors, exterior to point out, and the candle footprint on that is remarkable. You can stand outside on our street, and it's about 40 or 50 feet from our particular light, and it shines on the street. And this is in accordance with Dade County, and we do it, but it feels almost a little intrusive. I know I'm kind of going off task here, but it's a little intrusive if there's a neighbor who has got a single-family, residence. It's a lot of light, but that's the ordinance for the county. That's one thing I don't understand in relation to what we're talking about now. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so are you going to withdraw your...
Well, we have one more gentleman
is
waited
there?
for
Oh, I'm
public
sorry.
comment. And then, yes.
I'll be very brief. It's past my bedtime. I think the retrofitting came from the PZB. They wanted that. That's what I remember at their meeting on this. The building there's an empty lot across the street from me, and it's going to be going back before the board tomorrow. I was hoping to have this to hammer them with. I think Mr. Miller did a fine job. I think it's difficult to regulate light. My concern is that he wrote such a good ordinance that you can't find a void for vagueness. And there's so many variables with lighting and the different observer points of view. You may be high, you may be low. I just wish there was some kind of wiggle room where you could find an offensive in a way that would pass constitutional muster. I'm really tired. I have vertigo of central origin, which means I have a finite amount of cognitive energy, and my brain uses a lot of it to feel balanced, and so I'm running out of juice.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for hanging in there.
Oh, we should include interior spaces. Somebody was talking about lights from the hotels.
Interior, yes.
So,
yes. That's good.
Are you okay to get home?
yeah, I can walk. The brightest part of Sereno is our lobby.
Perhaps we should look at then in the retrofitting, talking about the buildings that came online within X period of time or have rooftop pools to clarify that.
No, it's fine to look at it.
And then, I'm going to withdraw the second, knowing we're bringing it back.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
So Vicky was the last one.
Item 9, consideration and approval of an ordinance on first reading requested by Councilmember Yaffe, amending Chapter 23 relating to vehicle parking lifts.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 23 of the town's adopted Code of Ordinances entitled Zoning and Planning by adding Section 2324H entitled Vehicle Parking Lifts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
I'll move it.
Second.
I asked for this to have an ordinance on this topic for safety reasons. I think that, a number of the buildings and more developments are coming forward with, in order to meet the parking requirements, they're using parking lifts. And I don't have a problem with parking lifts as long as there's somebody professional, whether it's, a valet parker or somebody who works for the building who's trained to use those lifts. I think that there are two possibilities for somebody to get hurt. Just because they're not sure of what they're doing, or they don't know that there's somebody standing there or something's going on. So I just want to make sure that it's properly regulated and somebody who's using these lifts is trained to do it.
Does this exist in other municipalities where they require, like, third parties to operate the lifts?
Greg?
There's not too much regulation at this stage, no.
You don't.
But that doesn't mean there shouldn't be.
Okay.
Francis Newhut?
Was there any discussion or anything else?
Francis Newhut,
Levántate.
1060 King Concourse. I usually go to most of these planning and zoning board meetings, and they just approved a project site plan with 4 mechanical lifts. In other words, they go up 4. And
they go up 4.
And the way the woman described, Mr. Miller, you were there, and the way they described it was that you have to back in your cars. And not only that, I remember Jed Frankel and a few other people reminding everyone that the town, they would require a person to watch, what is it called,
A valet?
a valet service. Okay, so when you own an apartment or buy one, you know, these are expenses that need to be known. But according to this woman who was speaking, and now the project was approved, and they claimed they didn't need valet parking. Am I correct? Because you were there. Yeah, but they said they didn't need valet parking. Okay? They said they didn't need a valet person for their lifts. It specifically says in the code that the council has to approve it. I don't think you ever had a site plan that was approved that went to you to approve the vehicular lifts. So I don't know what's going on here between the town planner, when they approve and send it off to the planning and zoning board, but there's lack of communication when these site plans are being approved, because this site plan was not. And I also talked about another project that came aboard, and that's near my property with these commercial lifts. There's no way in the world they should have these lifts in the commercial district, not with the time factor involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerome? Jerry? His name is Jerome. No, we call him Jerry.
Official, Jerome.
Yes, I'm being official.
Jerome Gafkovich, 1251 97th Street. I just want to say, I wasn't planning to speak on this item, but I saw it was on the agenda. I'm in favor of the lifts. I think it's, the use of the lifts is a good idea. It saves on garage space, garage construction, which nobody really likes to look at in any of the buildings that are in the town or in any community. A lot of communities try to hide it, and we're trying to do the same thing. So that if we can limit the size of the garage, I think it helps. I don't have necessarily a problem with the use or the requirement for valet. I don't think it should apply, however, to residential in multifamily, because really it's a very actually simple system. It's a matter of turning the key at the lift, and the car comes up or down, up or down. And if the spaces are assigned to, and each unit requires 2 spaces in the code. So if those 2 spaces belong to one unit, then it's no different in a sense of parking in your driveway, and you have to pull out, you know, if it's circular or something, you have to pull out one car to get the other out. It's just vertical. And in a lot of municipalities, they also allow tandem, where one car can park behind, in a garage, one car can park behind the other. And it's the same idea. You're going to have to pull out the one in the back to get the other one in or out. It's a mechanical system.
What if you've got you want the car that's up top, you got to move out the one on the bottom, bring the lift down, move the one from the, and you have multiple people doing this, or multiple owners moving, coming and going at the same time. I think that, if this is, I agree. I have no problem with the lift system, and you're right in terms of the garages and the size of the garages, but I think that, when you're buying into one of these communities, you have an understanding that there's a lift system, and you're going to have a professional, not a professional, it could be an employee of the condo association who doesn't have to be a valet, for example. It could just be somebody who works for the rental property or the condominium association doing this. I think, to me, it's just a safety issue.
But some buildings don't have a lot of units. If you can be 8 units, and it's, you're not going to be able to hire someone, have someone there to be, you're talking about 24 hours to be able to operate it if that's what you're asking for. I just think in multifamily, where those 2 spaces do belong to 1 unit, again, it's very simple to use. We've specified on projects many times, and I've seen it work. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you so much for your time.
Well, yeah, I have some comments.
We still have one.
Oh, we do?
Oh, we do, I'm sorry. Jeff?
Thank you, Jeff Burkow, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. Congratulations, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm here representing 3 different property owners, Royal Club Towers, Island Club Towers, and Congress Driftwood, each of whom have approved site plans, but don't yet have building permits. For those projects, it's like changing the rules in the middle of the game. They didn't pro forma those projects with the idea that they would have to employ another employee to take care of valets and parking lifts, etc. These systems, as Jerry just told you, are very, very simple to utilize. My understanding is that there is a lift system at the Kai project on West Bay Harbor Drive, and you can go visit it and see that it's very easy to operate. You don't need a professional, you don't need an employee of the building, and we would urge you to at least carve out previously approved projects with previously approved site plans. Otherwise, you're just passing those costs on to the owners, not onto the developers. So we would ask for a carve-out for previously approved site plans.
Okay.
I have some observations. I did go to the demonstration that they had at 9901, and I guess every project is a little bit different, because that one, the gentleman did a very nice job showing us, how the cars go in. They recommended that the cars go in backwards, the way they're laid out, but I noticed that maybe there were like 8 in a row, and not all of them had the room to go in backwards, because it is really tight, like you say, once they get in and out of there. And then what was really disturbing is it was making a noise, and yes, exactly like that. And then it made a different noise when it was empty, because sometimes you put it up when it's empty than when it was full, but that had a car on it. So I went outside, and this was on like the 2nd level, and it was a solid concrete wall, and then it was open under. And I really thought I was just going to go out there and just eliminate that there was any noise. So I went out onto the adjoining lot, the old Driftwood, and I made about a 10-foot, I marked off about 10 feet, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'm next to an existing building, and what would it sound like? It was really loud. I mean, I'm not going to play the video because it's not a true representation, but I was kind of surprised just how loud it was, and if somebody were sitting there, we're in a bedroom, and then another person comes home at 3 in the morning, that's a problem. And then I went over to the Bay Breeze, because the Bay Breeze has a lot of lifts, but I think because of the nature of the guests they have right now, they have a lot of people who come by Uber, and that garage, it's completely open air. It has like a pretty open fence, and all the lifts were down. Actually, at 4:30 that afternoon, there wasn't a car in there. And so I think sometimes they have to come up with the spaces for the requirement, but they might not use them. So those at Bay Breeze were down. And I thought, wow, that's really bad. So now you don't even have the concrete, you have the open air. So, I would rather see, other remedies than the lifts altogether. I think the tandem is really better if that can be encouraged, because then at least, the average person can shuffle a car around. It was hard to say, because the guy who was operating the lift was a professional, and he's done this all the time. I think he was with the company. So, I'd be inclined to support something like this, but also to put something in there about buffering the noise.
I think that's the key thing right there. The plan has to be the main thing as far as how it tries to remediate part of the sound issue, because lifts are one thing, the sound is a whole different animal here.
in New York City, I mean, lifts are used. Loud. I know, I mean, let's start with the lift. The lift is used all the time. I mean, I've used lift before, and it's used all the time in the city, and you're right. But I think more important than the actual lift is the sound. I mean, the sound is the most important thing that we buffer. As far as whether we use a valet, a person, I think it depends on the size of the condominium too, because if it's the townhomes and I own the townhome and I have my own personal lift, I mean...
No, but they're excluded. Single family and dual dwellings are excluded.
Right, but he's talking about, let's say there's 8...
Right, that's the problem. That's
you know, I just, are we gonna require somebody within eight apartments to have a full-time person there monitoring the list? I don't know if we can,
What about if we
Then
did
they'd have
something
16 spaces, so maybe they wouldn't even need them, or they could do some tandems instead.
Right, unless we do
To
something
avoid
where...
the cost.
Right, unless we do something where if you're on your own, if you're monitoring and actually you're maintaining your own by the owner, that may be an exclusion. So in other words, if it solves part of the problem. So if you have an 8-unit building and you do the tandem, or you have a lift with 2, something like that, maybe that works a little bit better. But yeah, I understand.
And there's issues also. You have visitors, a lot of, I think somebody, or Kelly, you said about the Ubers and things like that, people coming into buildings and they're not familiar with the system, so, I mean, that's concerning to me.
Right.
Yeah, I think, I love the spirit of this, and obviously I said something earlier about the safety of it as well. So I actually went and I Googled to see if people have injured themselves utilizing this, and I didn't find anything about people harming themselves. Listen, I know not that people want to admit that, right, that they hurt themselves with a lift, but I didn't see anything particularly on that. I mean, for me, if I'm going to purchase in a building that has a lift and I'm required to operate that, then I'm accepting the responsibility for operating that, and I'm accepting the risk that's associated with it, which means if I have someone who's coming to visit me, I'm going to tootle my little behind downstairs, and I'm going to operate the lift myself probably because I'm terrified that they're going to ruin my car or something like that.
Or at least you know the expense beforehand, the
You-
same thing.
right.
You would know if there's an
But
additional
I
expense.
love the spirit of this, and I'm totally behind that. I just think that for me, it's probably an extra step that I'm just not in favor of at this time.
Well, this goes back to something I tried to push like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was, about assigning separate, requiring guest spaces and any development. And I think that might be the way to do it. So in other words, if we're requiring the guest spaces, if you're not going to have somebody who is a permanent there, the guest spaces cannot be on lifts.
That I like.
That's a really good idea.
Well, following on what you're saying, then, there should be restrictions that visitors can't use the lifts, people who have short-term rentals.
Exactly.
100%.
Those people can't, short-term renters can't use the lifts. I mean, there's got to be some kind of restrictions. I understand what you're saying, particularly in the smaller developments that, I mean, if you're buying it, you have to learn how to use it, but...
It comes down to fewer units, less density, and then you're fine.
That's true, too. I mean,
But
there's
still
no
can't.
requirement that you, I mean, we permit lifts, but certainly there's no requirement that you have to have them, so...
So do we want to alter that then, to be that only the unit owners or the people they're renting to can operate the lifts? Would that be a good compromise?
I mean, that's better than the way it is now, where anybody can use them. And while you may, assume the risk, it's, there are other people around, people walking by, things going on,
Yeah, I
kids
know
running around. That was one of the concerns also.
Spiaggia over in Surfside, that's a big building, but I know they have the valet, and I think most of ours here, right? Riva is a smaller building.
Right, Riva is a valet.
But they know going in that they're going to have that cost, so those...
And they buy.
I think that we have, and more importantly than any of that, again, is the noise. We have to do something, I know the lifts have...
But I want the guest spaces separate. I think that's required.
So do we want to come...
Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this ordinance.
Right, well, then we need, I think,
refine it.
We need to refine it, from the discussion.
But also, going back, let's go back to something else as well. Mr. Burkow did mention something that is reasonable, and if somebody already has a site plan,
Right.
that's grandfathered in.
Of course.
That has to be in.
I'm not
That's not. I don't believe in changing the numbers when the game's already started. Works on these.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, please.
This keeps coming up. The code is littered with language when you were at the Planning and Zoning Board, and there's little phrases that should say that town, whoever approves the project. And when you transfer the duties to the Planning and Zoning Board, there's still some of these leftover things in different code sections. That's one of them. But we as staff have talked about that, and we take everything to the Planning and Zoning Board and don't bring all those little details to you anymore.
So to clarify, so you're saying you've already told them the site plan, for example, in any of those ones, the site plan has been approved, has not been approved? Which way is it? And then you've given them warnings that something may change in code? I'm not sure exactly.
We're not
what you're
sure what
saying.
that point was that you just said.
Oh, no, but Bob, what he's trying to say is, there's conflicts in our code, and this is not a conflict. You don't approve the lifts anymore. It's just done. You said...
That's not the question. The question becomes, in other words, we're talking about if you've got plans, if site plans have been approved for other projects.
Well, that's policy. That's what you want. Well, that's easy for...
I understand, but again, so I think our interest, and tell me if you feel otherwise, would be to grandfather, if site plan's been approved, if they're that far, they're grandfathered into before this, the ordinance, regardless of what we end up doing.
We do that all the time.
Right.
With ordinances and amendments.
But you started, I wasn't clear because one of the things you stated a moment ago was that there are caveats that were given within any of site plan approval. Does one of those caveats include language that say that everything may change in the meantime?
No. The only thing I was trying to respond to was the comment that Mrs. Newhut made before that there is a code section that says the town council approves these lifts or some alternate method.
Right, got it. Okay,
that needs to be cleaned up in the code.
Okay, but we need to really work on, more importantly, the buffers for this town. I mean, it's not acceptable for somebody to be living next door in their bedroom and hearing the
If I could speak on that, the code, we changed the code several years ago to say that all garages are completely enclosed unless the board approves something else. And what people have submitted is a number of things where they don't want to put mechanical ventilation, but they have an opening on the side, but they have louvers or screens or something like that. Some people have tried to do these green screens. They don't do anything other than it looks pretty occasionally, but it doesn't stop any noise or light or anything. So we don't like those.
I think what this comes down to is safety. Is it a safety issue or not? Just like other things, if we agree that it's safe for an owner to operate it, no, that's it. It's either safe or it's not. There's no in between.
But it's a matter of who's actually operating. Owner is one thing, but...
We have to be certified. The gentleman said...
Bob made a very good comment about, Airbnb and stuff like that.
Right.
You're opening up to a whole...
I think we've given, if I can just, because we have 10 minutes left at this point out for this meeting.
They did have a process, by the way, that they will certify someone to know.
Right. Mayor, I think as you were just indicating, there's 10 minutes left.
So we have to withdraw, so technically we have to withdraw.
You made the motion, and I'll withdraw the second.
Okay, so we're on 10.
Number 10.
Item 10.
Item 10.
Approval, consideration approval on first reading, an ordinance to implement the P&Z Board initial recommended code amendments to single-family home development.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending the town's code of ordinances as related to building articulation and open space requirements in the RD Single Family District, amending Chapter 2311 of the Zoning and Planning Code entitled Land Development Regulations, providing for requirements and standards, providing for severability, codification, and providing an effective date.
Anything else?
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. This is the first recommendations coming from your Planning and Zoning Board on the
There was no motion made.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Thank you.
You can second it.
There's been a lot of discussion on a lot of different things. These are two that they collectively agreed on and recommend that you move forward with. One is to have a criteria in the front yard of a single-family home that at least 50% of the area has to be green open space. That means the driveway, walkways can't be any more than that. So that's pretty simple. The other one was on the boxy modern buildings with the side. They want some language to help them instruct people to break up the flat facades, and these are the two that they collectively agreed on. So I don't this is coming directly from your planning and zoning board.
Right, and they were good enough to come in front of us last month and speak with us a little bit about this, and I think we had the same thought process on it. Do you feel this is sufficient to cover everything we talked about? I mean, I know they gave the recommendations, and I'm thrilled with the recommendations to try and break it up. Is this sufficient in your mind, or do you think that something else needs to be added in addition?
Tomorrow's another meeting. They're going to continue talking about other ideas, but these are two that they wanted you to move forward with immediately to help with the green around the building on the streets and break up the facades a little bit. They may come back with something additional, but that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, this is it. You know, I was a little surprised. So what else are they contemplating?
Well, for those of you that attended or listened to the meetings, it's a fairly lively discussion. We have, representatives that don't want any regulation whatsoever, let anybody do what they want, and then you have other people, so it's back and forth. I think they will come forward with additional recommendations, but I don't know what that would be.
Well, we do have the vice chair, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I think that they're trying to, there are more, every month there are new projects coming before the board, and they have some concerns about these two areas, the open space and the articulation and so forth. And I think they want to see if we can adopt their recommendations, before a lot more projects come before them.
Right, and it's some additional guidance here. I mean, I don't want to cut you off, but it's additional guidance, even though this won't go through two readings, obviously, before tomorrow. Right. It gives an idea of where we're going and gives them a little bit more thought process.
Right.
Okay. I wanted to first say thank you so much for coming out. I know that it's been a lively discussion between both parties, and I appreciate you coming out here this evening. I did read through it, and I was really excited to see some of the forward movement. There were two pieces that I saw there that I'd like to give feedback on. One is, I don't think that the pervious pavers, the green space in between there, should be included in the 50%. Now, I know that it's capped at the 50% credit, but to me, I don't think that should be included in the 50% of green space. The other thing is I still would like to see the increase in the number of trees and shrubbery. I saw, and unless I've read it wrong, that is still the same. We didn't actually add an increased requirement for trees and shrubbery, and I think that that's also something that's important, because right now, and I don't see it right now, but there's still a minimal number. I want to say there's 2 in the front yard that are required.
The Miami-Dade code, which is our code, our base code, requires only 3 trees per lot, and it doesn't specify where they go. The town supplemental landscape code requires 5 trees per lot for a dry lot. There's a little more for the waterfront lots, and at least 2 in the front yard.
Right. I personally would like to see an increase in that number, and then I said, the green space in between the pavers not included in the 50%. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree.
Yeah, and let me ask one more thing.
I totally agree.
We're talking about, obviously, it's this development, but as far as the definitions in here, if someone was redoing their driveway, I want to make sure we don't have a scenario where all of a sudden now, there's a slight alteration in the concrete, calculation and everything else.
Right.
And all of a sudden now they've got to redo essentially their house, in order to move everything back 2 feet, something along those lines. So I'd like some kind of exception along those lines.
It's a Bob Vila thing, right? You got to move it back.
Good.
Let me ask you a question. We require 20% of the footprint for the multifamily to be green.
Yes.
I'm assuming that when you have the P&Z meetings that there's some level of discussion about specifically what Councilmember Tricochet mentioned, because that was specifically something we mentioned at the last meeting. The 3 trees, that was distinctively a very distinct point that we collectively wanted. So was there any consensus that came from planning and zoning about adding more trees specifically, or more,
They discussed that. I would say that, when you're dealing with architects, I don't know if that's a Jerry, but they want a lot of freedom in the code. They want a lot of freedom from themselves to design kind of whatever they want. So there's, what if somebody brings me, a lot of comments were made, what if somebody brings me good architecture, and I like it, but they don't want to put a lot of trees in the front yard? I should be able to do that, and, you know, that's, I mean, I don't know how you respond to that, because it's just, that's the nature of designers, that they want freedom to do whatever they want to do, and as a planner and an urban designer, we want some guidelines, so you're trying to get that balancing act, if you will.
Jordan, I can tell you that the board definitely is in favor of more landscaping, but I think they want to be in control of it,
Right.
how it goes. I mean, to your point, sometimes just putting 5 more trees doesn't really work, but they'll address the landscaping, and they're very conscious of it. I would say that's a pretty fair statement.
Although we've got to follow up on landscaping.
That's-
Ron, although we've got to follow up on landscaping only because I remember when the hotels came in front of us and you said you said you hate, you know, palm trees and there'll be no more palm trees, and at least their plans are no palm trees, and that's what they put out.
Well, really, there's less palm trees, there's more shade trees going in now. I don't know if you noticed that.
When they can push the palm tree out of the way.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mrs. Newman.
Ms. Newman.
Francis Newhut, 1060 Kane Concourse. The last, what we talked about just a few minutes ago, about whatever it was, again, planning and zoning, there's no communication here. You got planning and zoning sending it to, or I should say town planner, stating that it's in code, sending it to planning and zoning, might not be in code, but they're pressured to make it in code. And then when you see it being built, it's not in code. And a perfect example of this particular code was back in January of 2016, one of the planning and zoning board members requested amending the code to regulate lot coverage for the single-family residential homes. So from January 19, 2016, a lot of homes have been built, and they're not in code. They're not in code across the street. And you mention here a new code with building articulation. The way these developers are going to interpret that, well, it's beautiful to have a wall 11 feet tall, because that's articulation to that building. So you really have to differentiate what these building articulation, and I really want to talk about the building across the street from me, because that one and many more are not to code. The picture shows a parapet that's very thin. Now you have maybe 6 feet tall. So the building is huge. Okay, so they eliminated the wall. I don't know what they're doing now, but there's a million walls around of concrete. The whole thing looks huge, out of proportion. Anyone who comes to my house, including builders or anyone who's giving prices on storms and hurricanes and stuff, they will say, what's that thing across the street? It's huge, it doesn't fit. So obviously, something must be wrong here. And it's not, and it's communication. You can have all the laws you want, including here, but you know what? Out on the field, and you live there, you know what's happening. But if nobody's going to put their foot down and say enough, they're going to continue. Thank you.
Jerry.
After our
Still
deadline.
the same item.
It's 11.
We have to finish the one where you finish.
Motion?
You finish whatever you're on.
Sign them and that's it.
Joe Gafka, 1251 97th Street. To answer a couple of questions, the trees, and I should say, I'm not really necessarily speaking for the board. I'm coming to speak to you as a board member, but not for the board, because I've had disagreements with many of the board members on these issues. The issue with the trees, I think we should have more trees in the front yard. It didn't go anywhere. What was the code change that was recommended was just something that we settled on, I think. In fact, I think both of those ordinances are something that we settled on because we're just grasping for something that we can agree on. By the way, on the first item regarding the 50% paved, I would recommend that, and I didn't notice it when it was sent to me a week or two ago, or longer. I think it should say 50% of the required front yard, not necessarily 50% of the whole front yard should be limited, because if someone chooses to set their house back further from the front setback, then they shouldn't necessarily be penalized. So it should say required front yard.
Mike, did you get that?
No problem.
Oh.
I think as a board, as Planning and Zoning Board, me personally, that we failed in this objective. I think, you asked, I don't know who said, I think you said that, this is it. I think this is, to me, accomplishes nothing. I think we should, and I've spoken to a couple of you individually, I think we should be looking at lot coverage and the maximum size of homes. And even though there seems to be at least 3 out of the 7 of us, maybe 4 that were willing to go there, it just didn't go. It didn't get accomplished. At the end of our meeting, I asked, because we didn't get the things that I was think that are necessary, and I've been saying this for 2 years, that I was hearing some thoughts on it, so I said at the end of the meeting, does anybody agree with what I'm saying in terms of, that we should have some limits on lot coverage, building size? And three agreed, or including myself, and a 4th seemed to agree or was willing to go there, but we didn't really get into it. But I think you guys need to force it a little bit. I think it's a big issue in terms of the size of homes. I don't think it's fair to allow the size of homes that the code currently allows, and it's not fair to a developer who comes in or an owner and looks to buy a house, and if in theory someone can build a 10,000 square foot house on a standard lot, and then it's up to the Planning and Zoning Board to say no.
I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more limitations. I agree.
So then look, if we have zoning in progress, don't you think we should have some type of moratorium on new, single-family home projects?
That's not necessarily.
No, but I think we can do a moratorium on that. Well, I don't know if we can. I was to say a moratorium on anything.
Josh, can I throw something out here?
Yeah.
They have been discussing this at length.
Yes.
And I actually think it's good they bring a little at a time, because if you bring everything at once, it kind of gets sucked down into, it's very hard to get to it all. So seeing it in small bites might be better. But they certainly have been discussing it
Ron, the funny thing here is that what they want and what we want, I think, is the exact same thing. We're just trying to find a way to word it.
Well, they're discussing it, and, there isn't full agreement, but
what you're talking about is what we want to get what we really want.
But Jordan, I don't understand why everyone's against the moratorium.
If you go to those meetings, okay, I mean, I've sat through, and Kelly was there, and I think, were you, Josh?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you've got like a 2.5, 3-hour meeting where they're having, sort of an intense discussion about an issue, and I want them to, talk those out and come up with recommendations. I'm not going to put a time frame on them. I'd like to see it get done as quickly as possible. I'm not going to say you have to do it within X period of time, unless you're going to start scheduling more frequent planning and zoning board meetings.
Well, it's on the agenda tomorrow for discussion some more. These are the 2 things that they achieved consensus on.
Right.
Yes. And that's why they sent it to you, so that they could get started on something.
For those of you who remember, Charter and Ordinance Review Committee, it took us like 6 years to come up with. No, seriously, that was ridiculous.
But
I'm just saying, I think we need to let them work through some of these issues.
And like,
because
but if they have to do a
we asked them
piecemeal,
to do it.
but if they want to do a piecemeal, then let's do it piecemeal.
Right.
Well, like Jerry just said about those 2 issues, the lot coverage and the maximum size of the homes, I mean, you guys never really voted, right? It was like you're trying to reach a consensus, so the majority did kind of go with that. So,
Well, they voted to send this to us in this form, yeah.
So do we want to,
those 2 particular
I
issues.
think I need to correct you on that, because
Okay.
I I don't remember, and I have been at all those discussions, that they agreed on anything except for these two things.
Right.
They agreed to continue the discussion on those items.
Because I think the things that came, that they
You're
put
correct,
in the
Maureen.
memo, they had complete consensus, and that's what they were looking for. But like Jerry said, the majority of them really did like the lot coverage and the maximum size of the home.
I don't know about that.
I
would disagree, I would disagree with that.
Hold on. We have two items that are in front of us, right?
Right.
Included in this, right? It's the pavers that they put in there and...
The wall.
And
Articulation of that.
Okay, and articulation of the wall. I think the pavers shouldn't be included in the percentage, and I think we need to increase the number of trees, but we also have the wall there. Do we want to make those amendments now and move it to a second reading to get the
Yes.
process moving
Yes.
along?
Yes.
And change it to required percentage? So
Yes.
those would be the
Yes.
three changes that we would make on it, bring it back to a second reading.
Yes.
Let's put it earlier on in the agenda, and can we notice everyone that we're going to have it on the agenda next time so that everyone's clear?
Jerry?
It would be in the beginning of the second reading.
They were noticed.
Does that help you?
It's not going to help them with the lot coverage and the...
Well, no, I mean, it's gonna-
and
it's
the
gonna-
square
but
footage.
we have
We're not talking about lot coverage
We're
tonight,
not,
we're talking about other issues.
but we have to move what we can
Well, we should
move.
send a message to them that...
Okay, so
Well,
I think the initial motion...
hold on, but here's the message. You can relay the message. We can't go in there and speak in there, but you can relay the message. So you've been here, when you're there tomorrow, relay the message, is essentially what we're all saying, where we want to go from there.
Right, but where do you want to go? Are you guys interested in looking at building size and lot coverage?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, because there doesn't seem to be, some of the board members don't seem to get that. And the complaints that you guys have had we're not accomplishing anything with these two.
Some of the other board members are not interested in that, regardless of whether we are or not. They just don't, I've listened to their opinions on that. I'm interested in it, but
Can you just deliver the message from us, from this meeting, and say, hey, you guys, should present to the council some solution on, lot coverage and square footage?
But it's got to be reasonable, because I know there are different realms. Some people are going to want to say, absolutely, you want, real small things, other people, much larger homes. So there is a middle ground that I think,
and I'm sure that they'll find it.
And let me ask this, because one of the questions they kept talking about there, and let's go back with this, is the wedding cake style. I don't personally think that's a good idea for the single-family homes. I don't like it,
No, it
but...
wasn't really that.
Well,
they talked about it.
Michael made a point that, as the architects don't necessarily like to be limited in what we can do. And I, in a sense, I agree with that. I think if you can come up with I think that wedding cake, or the stepping back, does limit the homes too much. I think just simply saying maximum size of the home, maximum lot coverage,
that's
footprint.
Right,
That should be it.
exactly
Before that, let the architect hopefully come up with something.
That's exactly
Right,
right.
but sorry, one of the things that I think we were clear about when we sent this to you is some of us don't like the square concrete boxes. And, I'm not saying that it has to be wedding cake or that there has to be a setback on the second floor, whatever it is, but we're trying to get, at least in my opinion, I'd like to get away from that look of those square boxes. So, somebody was talking in one of the meetings about like going out further in the back, for example. You know what I'm saying? So you have the same amount of square footage, but you're just recessed on the second level.
There seemed to be some...
No, I understand, but the point is that some of us don't like the square boxes, that's all.
Oh, I agree with you, but that's the aesthetics that they've got to deal with.
One of the things I had presented to the other members of the board is, let's limit, let's say that we need to step back from the setbacks beyond what's currently required, whether it be on the second floor or for a certain distance along either the front, side, or rear. So you can't build on the side yard or the rear yard to the limit, to the full length that you can. But you can either choose that, what I was proposing, you can either choose those limitations on those front, sides, or rear, or choose to say, I'm going to limit the house to 60% building size, or And
That's what you got to come back to us with. Give us.
well, that's what I presented, it
Okay.
just didn't go anywhere,
So
so.
why don't we do this? You obviously heard us loud and clear. We want lot sizes and setbacks. So you can please tell the board that that's definitely something that we want. And as far as this is just a beginning step,
So
we need to...
with the amendments, we pass
With the
it.
amendments, are we going to pass it?
Well, we'll vote for it.
I will make the motion as amended that we make it required, per that the pavers are not included in the percentage. And Mr. Miller, can you state again, in the front area, how many trees are required right now? Two. I'd like to make it 4. And how many on the entire lot?
Currently
5.
5 on the dry lot.
5 on the dry lot?
Yeah, our definition
Okay, so let's,
is
7.
7 on the water lot.
So 7, increase it by 2.
Okay.
That's how I'd like to, anyone want to move it?
I'm sorry, can I add one more thing? The trees, the 4 trees that are now, you're going to require in the front yard could all be to the sides. So,
100%.
but that
Yeah, but that was
was
the objection, that
what
they put them
your
along-
objections were to that one
Right.
home.
That they
There
put them
wouldn't
along
be
the
one single
side.
tree in front of that home.
Right.
Just something to think about.
Right.
Well, you can do 2 and 2. At least 2 must be in front. The other one has
And if you have
4.
all the
Right.
trees lining the sides,
Right.
then that doesn't
So at least
serve
2
your
must be in the
purpose.
front, and then you have to have a total of 4, but no less than 2
Well,
have
it's
to be
already
in
at
front.
5.
Or 5.
We're already at 5,
No
so-
less than 5, but no less than 2 have to be in front.
So it's exactly the same as what you're saying?
No, because we're just saying the 5, in other words, if you just do 5, they're going to push them to the side.
No, but that's how it's written right now, is that it's 2 in the front and 5 total lot.
The 2 in the
No,
front.
no, we're saying the front only. So
Front
if we do
only.
it's just the front. So if we do the 4 in the front, or required in the front, no less than 2 of them which are in front. That way at least
They
pushes
can't
it.
go
Perfect, then that.
Can I say something? Because at this point, at this point, this is totally unproductive. It's time for the workshop. Can I schedule the workshop?
Please.
We wanted you to.
I understand, but there was an issue with the timing and everything, but I think you should listen to all of the professionals on the planning and zoning board at one point.
No problem.
So if you want to do it the same day of the council meeting, I can schedule it for 6:30, or I can schedule it for another
No,
time.
because we're going to have the same problem we have now, which is
Right.
that's going to last till 9.
Not an
and
council
we're gonna-
meeting day.
Okay, so I will poll you, and I will find the best day, and I will speak to the planning and zoning
Did you
board
solve the
tomorrow.
technology problem?
And I'm sorry?
Did you solve the technology problem to be able to?
We will have to do it here.
Okay, so it's like
Yes.
set table here or
We'll have to
something?
do it here.
And I'd like to point out too that, we ask for the opinion, we respect it, but if you can't get consensus, but you can get the majority to go for those 2 things, it's our decision ultimately.
Right.
Okay.
But we have to vote.
So we have to vote on it.
On the majority, on.
Well,
that-
even
on the-
even if it's
We
close.
have a first, we have a second?
Yep.
Yes, we have.
Okay, all those in favor?
No?
Poll vote, poll vote. It's
Oh,
an
is it
ordinance.
poll?
Yes.
All right.
First reading.
All right, Councilmember Leonard.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Salver.
4.
Councilmember Tricochet.
4.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller.
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
Unanimous.
Okay, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Are we meeting tomorrow?
No.